All set and ready.
Just want to check one more thing. Okay, so the audio and the video is good.
Okay.
We have it patched to clear face.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 4th. The chair will accept the motion to go into executive session pursuant to Rhode General Law 42-46-5A2. Litigations to discuss claims under A on the docket. We will reconvene in open session at the conclusion of executive session. Would anyone like to make a motion at this point in time?
Mr. President, so moved.
We have a motion at this time to go into executive session by Councilman Cahoon. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
It's seconded by Councilman Matters. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Council President. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
Conference room A.
You want to bring your coffee? Cover it up.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Huh? Thank you.
Safety, yes. With the cone. What was wise, I think.
It's gonna be very, very high. And the storm is supposed to come, I think they're gonna miss pieces.
Okay, we're recording.
Okay. Everybody all set? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Again, today is Tuesday, August 4th. May we all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. Madam Clerk, can you start off with a roll call vote, please?
Yes,
Not roll call. And this check?
yes. Councilman Cahoon.
Here.
Councilman Morado.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza is absent. And Council President Brito.
Here, thank you.
Welcome.
Next item, please.
The next item is motion to seal minutes from executive session.
So moved, Mr. President. Would anyone like to second that motion? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next item is consent calendar.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, please.
Licensing not requiring public hearing. Application for Peddler driver. The applicant is Pelagi's Ice Cream. The name of the driver is Castor Hoyos.
Is the applicant present this evening?
Yes.
Okay, will you like to step up to the podium, please? Do we have all the information we need at this point in time?
Yes, Council President, we
Any
do.
questions, comments, or concerns from the council?
Mr. President, I move to approve.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilman Cahoon for approval. Would anyone like to second that approval? Rodriguez. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank
You're all set. Thank you. Let them clear the podium first before proceeding. Next applicant, please.
The next applicant is an application for Peddler driver. The applicant is Pelagi's Ice Cream. The name of the driver is Jorge Luis Rodriguez.
Any questions from the council at this point in time?
Mr. President,
We have all the paperwork in place.
Yes, everything's in place, Council President.
Mr. President, I move to approve.
We have a motion for approval. Anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All set. Next applicant.
Applicant is applicant for a tattoo shop. The business name is Studio 29. Applicant is Elsie Jose. The address is 345 Taunton Avenue, East Providence, 02914.
Is the applicant here this evening? Applicant? Applicant is not here this evening. All paperwork in place.
Everything's in place, Council President.
Do we have any questions or concerns regarding the applicant at this point in time?
Is this, President, apartment vacant building? Is this, no,
That I don't know offhand.
just wondering if we're getting one of the vacant buildings filled.
Not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I
But
apologize.
everything is in order.
Everything is in order,
I'll
Council
move
Vice
approval.
President.
Okay.
One second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morado. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Moving right along.
Next,
Next applicant, please.
application for tattoo shop. Business name is One with the Arts. The applicant name is Elton Duarte. And the address is 152 Warren Avenue, East Providence, 02914.
Is the applicant present at this time? Let's approach the podium, please. We have everything in place for this applicant?
Yes, this applicant has been very comprehensive.
Any questions or concerns that we have for the applicant at this time? No questions or concern? Anyone like to make a motion? Sorry.
Cahoon. Councilman Morado. Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you, sir, you're all set.
Thank you.
Application, please.
We actually had one more for One with the Arts for Mr. Duarte. That's the application for holiday sales license.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Everything in order at this point in time? All
Yes.
paperwork?
Yes, everything's in
Any
order.
questions, concerns from the council? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next one, please.
Next is the application for victualling license, Class 2. The business name is Chun Ching House, and the applicant is Wen Chin. This is on 188 Taunton Avenue, just across the street, East Providence, 02914.
The applicant, would you like to approach the podium? All their paperwork in place?
Everything's in place, Council President.
Any questions from the council? No questions from the council? Would anyone like to make a motion at this time?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Anyone like to second that?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application, please.
The next application is an application for a victualling license, Class 3. The business name is A Positive Atmosphere LLC, doing business as Atmosphere. The applicant name is Robert Batista III, and the address is 285 Taunton Avenue, East Providence, 02914.
Are you Mr. Baptista?
Yes.
All his paperwork in place?
All the paperwork is in
Any
place.
questions from the council at this point in time?
Just curious, what type of business? Is it a restaurant?
It's gonna be a cafe.
285 Taunton Avenue, is that one?
The little building next to the burrito bowl.
Okay. Any, no questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Anyone like to second that approval? Roll call vote, please.
I apologize. Was that from Councilman Morado?
Second, yes.
Yes, thank you. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along, next application, please.
Next application is the application for amusement park rides, concessions, and Kittyland rides. This is 8 kiddie rides, 2 food concessions, 3 kiddie games. The business name is It's requested on the application for July 1st, 2020 to November 1st, 2020.
Thank you, sir. All the paperwork in place?
All the paperwork is in place. I don't have a copy of the bond. The bond payment, a copy of the check for the bond payment. I don't know where that is.
Okay, any questions, sir? Are you the applicant? Harold?
I am.
Okay. Any questions from the council at this point in time?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a concern I would like to raise.
Please do so.
I don't feel comfortable approving this personally. I don't think that this is the right time to add kiddie rides. I'm well aware of the there's a protocol for wiping down the equipment and all of that. However, I don't want to be the council person to vote on something like this during a pandemic and have the kid contact traced back to kiddie rides. So it's just something that can wait. There's no need for that right now.
Any other questions from the council?
President, question, sorry you can answer, or someone else, but, I was looking online at your site and I noticed that there were announcements about several cancellations already. And one reads, due to rules and regulations regarding COVID, many of our events are canceled for the 2020 season. I know that the 3 County Fair was canceled, the Holy Trinity Parish Carnival been canceled. So why would this go on with other cancellations taking place? And the second part is, well, I'll leave it that for now, then I have one other question.
The state of Rhode Island going to cancel all large events that they approved the Kitty Land, and I presently have one going in. Can you hear me with this?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. The state of Rhode Island canceled all large events, but I gave a proposal to the state and they approved Kitty Land with stipulations, and I presently have one going at Mulligan's Island in Cranston that's been operating since the beginning of July. And the state's been down to check us, and they said we're doing a good job, and we do everything that we've been requested to do. And that's why I'm asking to do this, to raise money for the carousel, and it's a safe environment. The rides get washed down with sanitizers after every ride. There's hand sanitizers. We fenced in the entire area. We only allow so many people in that area with the state. This is what the state required. And you have to wear a mask. All the employees wear a mask. All the employees, we take their temperature prior to going to work that day. We keep a log of everyone. We're no different than a restaurant or anywhere else.
I just raised the issue because I noticed you did have other cancellations for the whole year and other events and.
But those are all true full-size carnivals. All carnivals, the carnival can't operate because of the amount of people involved. And your average carnival, people can walk in from all different areas. They're not fenced off. With this here, it's fenced off. There's one way in, one way out. And we keep an account of how many people in.
My concern is that it's open to anyone. It's open to the state. It's open to anyone from out of state can come to this carnival, right?
Anyone from where?
Come to the carnival.
It's not a carnival, it's an enclosed kiddie.
People from everywhere can come to this, to use those rides. It doesn't have to be just East Providence residents. It can be anyone.
I have no way of telling if they're from East Providence.
But in addition to that concern, the predictions is that this virus is going to spike again come the fall, September, October. To me, it's not worth that risk to make a few extra bucks. It's just not worth it. This year is what it is. You had, religious festivals that have been canceled. You had all types of events. You had the 4th of July parade that was just a drive-through. The oldest parade in the country, and so on. It just doesn't make sense to put that risk out there just to pass, make a couple of bucks. I'm sorry.
My last, I don't know if it's a concern or not, but observations that I received from the immediate neighborhood was that they didn't like the idea that it was going until November. They thought, you know, a few weeks in the summer, they could maybe live with, maybe to Labor Day, but I'm just passing along constituents' observations that they're concerned with the length of time for it. I know it's not your fault, but I'm just passing that on to the council.
It was only designed that way because the fall, usually the weather gets a little bit better. In the history, last few years, falls have been much better than the summer. If I'd be willing to try it from now until Labor Day, and if you like what I do, I can come to the council and see if they want to extend it to November. But it's only 4 days a week. It's not 7 days a week, limited hours. You have to make reservations to come, and that's how we keep track of the people.
How do you
It's like you make a reservation in a restaurant,
How do you do that, online? Or?
online.
Any other questions from the council at this time? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to deny. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for denial at this time. Anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion for denial, second by Councilman Roberts. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Nay.
Aye. So,
I'm sorry, Councilman Cahoon, what was your vote?
Aye.
It's a motion to deny, so it's an aye.
Motion to deny, vote aye.
Councilman Morato.
aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Application denied. Next item, please.
Next item is under communications, open fire burning, Kevin Lewis.
Mr. Lewis?
Members of the council, Council President Brito, thank you for this opportunity. As you know, I was here last meeting, and I am in complete opposition of open fire burning in the city of East Providence. So I did what I thought brought up some valid points at that time. However, I did have some questions that I really didn't have the chance to address Fire Chief quick, so I did send him some questions that I had, which he did answer, which I would like to share with you if I may. Sure.
Please do.
I asked, how many times were you called for open fire situations last year? So I did get a count. To date, from this year to 7/22 at the time, that's when I asked, that was 40 calls. In 2019, 48 calls. 2018, 47 calls. In 2017, 61 calls for open fire burning situations. I asked, how many vehicles go out for each call when open fire complaints are investigated? The East Providence Fire Department responds with one engine company. I asked approximately how many fire people or firefighters are on those vehicles. 2 firefighters and 1 supervisor, 3 people. Approximate salary ranges is what I had asked on each one of those individuals, but I'll give you a count following this. I asked what were the damages associated with open fire burning. From 2019 to current, we were looking at about personal injury, personal loss, about $25,000. There's a burned down garage and a shed. Now, taking into consideration all of those that the fire trucks went out for that, for open fire burning is not allowed in the city of East Providence. So these are people that 150 plus times that the vehicles have gone out for open fire burning when they're not even allowed in the city. So I understand a standard is being set, whether it be clean wood or whatever, the 3-foot diameters of fire pits. But if if we're not allowing them and yet they're still doing them, I can't imagine that people are gonna follow the standard of which is being set for fire burning to move forward. But to date, 722 for the first year, taking consideration, maybe the popular time, and this is just my calculations, 5 months out of the year. So when we say 1 year, it's not really 12 months, it's maybe 5 months that people will be outside burning, unless they're out there in January in the snow or whatever. I didn't take that into consideration, but what would be popular, say April to November. So you figure 5 months, not even a full year. So to date, and that was here so far, and that was only until July, it was $3,840 paid for those vehicles to go out for open fire burning. In 2019, it was $4,629.12. In 2018, $4,532.68, and in 2017, $5,882.84. And these are in salaries. Now, this is a time that we're supposed to be saving money, we're on work-share programs and everything. And now, to date, we've spent almost $19,000 in salaries for people to go out. And that's complaints, that could be nuisances, but that's what we're looking at. And I just would really like, it's just a continuation of the last part of when I was at the meeting before. I'd like you to take this in consideration as well.
Oh, you can address it now.
Well, yeah. Thank you.
So, Mr. Lewis, I understand your concerns. I really do, because my neighbor, a neighbor of mine, in case he's watching, probably knows. He burns well, the spring, summer. I like camp fire. When it's in my house.
Right.
And a lot of times I do.
I'm having, this is the conference audio ID, and nobody can get in right now. You know, we're gonna have to do something with that.
Nice family, they don't do anything to set on fire. However, their pit is huge. It's a rock that they just make sure there's a big circle and they run everything. Sometimes I don't know what they run, but it's just everything. Well, the reason why I support this ordinance is, I think in contrast to what they're saying, I think it will reduce the amount of calls where now it's not that even. Okay? I think people are now, they're not just gonna, people are trying to just fire. The opposite of that. And they will cut down on these calls. Those in accordance with our ordinance, and also there's a way of enforcing it. Hopefully, by allowing this to happen, people will take into consideration what the damage with the fire diameters, with the netting that stops the damage, with the type of wood, protect themselves from not using gasoline to stop the fire. I hope that works. And as Councilman Kahuna said before, I think if this doesn't work, we can always visit this ordinance in the near future again. That's what the council desires. The point is, we're not going to stop people from letting profits. They're just trying to, if you're going to do it in a safe way, and there's still that mechanism in the ordinance where if it does become a use, if they do everything right, it can still be denied. Right. I understand. It was in close proximity and so on and so forth. So I think, me personally, I think it's going to be 2 calls. It's average about 50 to 60 calls. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your consideration. I don't believe that's going to be the case, but I like I said, I'm on 5,000 square foot lots where I am, and it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. And I know each of the council members here, because I did look at each of you are allowed under these conditions to have an open fire. in your yards, except Councilwoman. She wouldn't be allowed because she wouldn't have the square footage. But we'll just see how it goes.
Hopefully I'm right.
Yeah, so too, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We remain on the communications at this point in time. Next item, please.
The next item is Gary Menasian, Ocean State Multisport, approval request for road race on Sunday, September 20th, 2020, starting and finishing point at the East Providence Yacht Club.
Mr. Nestor. We have all the paperwork with respect to this applicant.
He was previously approved before everything with COVID hit, so we are utilizing his paperwork from that, and everything was turned in at that time.
So if it was previously approved, why is it on this meeting?
Because it's a new date, council present. Welcome.
I have a question and concern about this also.
If I may, kind of go over really quickly what a road race, what entails a road race, and then what the changes we made.
Please do.
So basically, what happens is we have a mass start, so everybody comes to the starting line and then they go. We don't have that anymore. We changed everything because of even USA Track and Field made us change our rules. So what we do now is, instead of having 200 people at the starting line, we have an open start time. So basically from say 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock, runners can come anytime in between that. So what that does is it staggers the runners, so there's no more mass start. So the way it works is the runners have to sign up, and what we did is the runners would pick up their bib numbers and their t-shirts the morning of the race. We don't do that anymore. You can't do that. So we eliminated that crowd. So we actually mail out their packets to them. So when they come to the race, they're all ready to go. So the runners show up at the race with their bib and their t-shirts, whatever. We have a chute. What we did is we developed a chute. So the runners would park their cars, we direct them into a chute. We take their temperature, we ask them COVID-19 questions. If they pass that, we allow them to go to the starting line. When they come back from the race, they enter a different chute that takes them an opposite way because there could be still runners going out as runners are coming in. Because if you came at 7 o'clock, you could be done by 8 and someone comes at 8 and they want to go for their run then. So we have 2 different chutes. So no runners are ever really near each other in crowds. The only time that they might be near each other is out on the course. Maybe they might pass each other if that's the case. So you could pass another runner. Also, the morning of the race, runners could sign up for the race that morning. We eliminated that. So everything is done online. So runners have to sign up online, which means we also have all their contact information. So we can do contact tracing from that if something happens. So we have eliminated everything. I did have 2 races approved in North Kingstown at Quonset Point for later in the year. And we just had a race, we actually have a race this coming Sunday in Smithfield. So we did get a race approved in Smithfield. We had the Department of Emergency Management came out and they studied our plan. The fire department's they're really gonna be there. And we were already told yesterday for the race that's coming up this Sunday, like we got 1 shot to get it right.
How many people are you expecting?
We capped it. So whatever the governor's guidelines are, is what we capped it at. That's including volunteers.
How many people is that?
So right now we have 180 runners and we have 20 volunteers. But what we did is we already shut our registration down. So we're not having no more than 200 people. And at no time will these runners all be in the same spot at the same time. Because we had to come up with a finish line. It was in the packet that I left in there. We had to come up with a finish line that got approved through USA Track and Field. Because they want nobody hanging around after the race. We have no more award ceremony, so when you cross the finish line, you get your medal, you get a bottle of water, and you're directed right toward your car. So you can't hang around anymore. There's no more, they won't allow it. So we did it so that there's no crowds. And actually the plan that I developed, they're actually using it now in Indiana and Virginia Beach.
So you're saying it's staggered times?
Yes, so you have 2 hours to come down and run. And what we do is we have 2 people taking temperatures. So during the shoot, the cones that we have are 60 apart. We have signs that say on there. So if that ever backs up, the person that is directing the runners into the chute will tell the runners, stay in your car until the chute clears out, and then we'll allow more runners to come in. So at no time is there ever 200 runners in the same spot at the same time. It's not like a large gathering or a mass gathering anymore. We've eliminated everything. There's no touch at all. We're not even giving out food at the end. We don't even have any more food at the end. It's a bottle of water, your medal, and you're on your way. We have no ceremony. After the race, we post everything online for the results. So there's no contact at all, nothing.
To be honest with you, I want to say it straight out. I was in favor. You saw what happened. My opinions with the last.
I know, I just walked in, I'm sorry, I wasn't here.
And I'm very familiar with road races and, the amount of people and that crowds that it generates.
Yep.
Hearing your plan and seeing what you propose.
I can guarantee you, there is no crowd at these races anymore. And look, I've been doing this for 10 years, organizing races, and I really don't see in the next couple of years, big races coming back. I don't see that. I see small races like this, because you can manage these races. And with only 180 runners, 200 runners, with an open start time, we tried everything. We come up with a really great plan to hold a successful race. And like I said, we had everybody's contact info at the beginning of the race. So, currently we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Robert. Approval, second by Councilman Brown. We're under the current guidelines, we're at 200 in the governor's office. Correct, in the department house, 200 is the outside activity. The governor's office is 250 outdoor activities, but with that, like, let's say September comes, the race comes, and she drops it down to 150, then that's what we'll cap our race at. Okay, so make sure that's part of your motion. Yeah, so whatever the guidelines are at the time of the race, that's what we'll like that. I agree to that. So we have a motion on approval, second. Roll call vote, please. Councilman Waddle.
Councilman Cahoon?
Are we talking 5K, 10K, or?
That's gonna be a 5K and a 5 mile. So what it does, it goes from the yacht club, and the 5 mile goes down Swan onto the bike path, and the 5K goes to the first oval parking lot, down the bike path. And we did get approval from DEM to use the bike path for that day. We do have approval for that. As long as I give them a letter of approval that the county says it's okay. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon? Councilman Morado? Council Vice President Rodrick?
Aye.
Council President Brito?
Aye, thank you. We have one more, please, sir. Stay right up there.
Okay, this is an approval request for road race East Providence Running Festival on Sunday, October 4th, 2020, starting and finishing point at Pierce Field.
This is basically the same kind of race, except the course goes from Pierce Field down to Crescent Rock, where you get on the bike path at Crescent Rock, like right after that Crescent
But you,
Yeah, so at the end over there, they get onto the lake path, they come all the way back to Pierce Field via, Lions Down. So it's the same exact thing, just the course is different. It's a little bit different. But otherwise, it would be the same information, like we would do the same identical thing.
Any other questions for the applicant? Not, would anyone like to make a motion?
move approval. With the same stipulations with the governor's numbers change.
Yes, exactly.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morado. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great night.
That concludes communication. With that being said, we're going to proceed and move on to public comment at this time. Public comment at this point in time, we have Debbie Brunt regarding the development of Newport Avenue New Road construction. Brunt? Ms. Brunt, can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure.
You can drop the mic down if you like.
I can
Drop the mic down.
put it down,
Don't hit the other one, the small one.
a small one, and I can put my mask down. Okay. Good evening. My name is Debbie Ryan, and I live at 33 Vista Drive in Rumford. Before I begin, and I know that Ms. Burnett is aware of this, but I've been getting lots of messages on my phone that people cannot call in regarding the audio conference, nor can they view a live stream video from City Hall West.
With that, what's happening right now is currently the meeting's being recorded, but for some reason, it's not being live streamed. So there's some issue on the interface that's causing this. It was fine earlier. I don't know if it has to do with the storm, but Mrs. Brennan's right. It's not working the way it's supposed to be.
And I know some people are also having a difficult time calling in for the audio conference as well. So I just wanted to put that out there before I begin.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Can we have somebody from IT at the next meeting to help address some of these?
Okay. So good evening. On tonight's docket, there will be a first and final passage discussion to amend the zoning ordinance for the development of property at the corner of Newport Avenue and New Road, as was recommended by the planning board. And I have to be honest, many people have told me not to waste my time speaking to you this evening because your minds are probably made up. Please know that I am here not so much to express support or to oppose the plan, but to voice concerns of many of my neighbors who are not aware of the meeting dates regarding this project, simply because they do not live within the required notification distance of 200 feet of the proposed development. I'm aware that the city has been compliant in posting notifications of such meetings on the Secretary of State's website, but there needs to be a better way of getting this information out to all people. And yes, the information has also been posted in the East Providence Post, but let's remember that many people are still reluctant to venture out to stores during the pandemic to pick up this post. And many of our seniors are unsure of how to access the information online. For example, my neighbor Mary Titus, who has had her thumb on the pulse of East Providence politics for decades, was unaware of this project because she usually goes to Edmonds to pick up her copy of the East Providence Post, and that store has been closed for a while due to the pandemic. The City of East Providence Facebook page does an excellent job of informing people about important events occurring in our community, and a precedent has been set for people to go to this page for important information that affects them. This Newport Avenue project, however, has received very little attention compared to other projects presently being discussed in the city. For example, the Marshall development of Metacommon was posted several days ago for Thursday night's meeting. There have also been other meetings that were posted several days in advance of the actual meeting date. However, the notice regarding the planning board meeting that was held on July 21st, where the Newport Avenue development was addressed, happened to be posted on the same day in which the meeting was held, giving people very little time to participate in the discussion. And also, in order to be prepared for tonight's meeting, I wanted to review the minutes from this meeting, and was surprised to see that on the City of East Providence website, minutes for the planning board meeting stops as of November 16, 2009. Again, I realize that this information is probably located elsewhere, but a precedent has been created by making information to the public available through the city's Facebook page and the website to keep citizens informed about current issues. It was noted in the July 30th post that an online petition had few signatures in regard to this project, and another written petition had over 40. It is highly likely that more people would have signed had they known. And I'd be interested in knowing exactly how many certified letters were sent out and compare that number to the number of signatures. Although I've noted that at this time I neither support nor oppose the project, as a teacher at Myron J. Francis in Rumford, I would be remiss if I did not express my concern about overcrowding of our schools. I realize that the developer's lawyer has stated that these apartments likely will be targeted to young professionals, some of whom might commute to work in Boston. And with all due respect to the lawyer who made that comment, he does not have a crystal ball, and he cannot control who moves in. So in closing, as more and more developers continue to buy up land in East Providence, I urge the mayor and the city council to find better ways to disseminate this information so all voices can be heard. We need to start looking outside of the box. Maybe the city can consider using robocalls to notify neighborhood residents of important zoning matters. Serious consideration should also be made
So, which speakers
to
are you using?
increasing the required distance notification for neighbors who live within the proposed development. As a community, all people have a vested interest in their neighborhood, not just those who live within 200. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein.
Hello, hello, hello. So, yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Run. Glad you brought up the, I want to repeat what I was saying. Where this is a different age of communication. We, for years now, no longer have a statewide newspaper that comes out every day with local news.
But the
In the
audio
old
is
days, I remember the East Bay edition, the Providence Journal. I remember we had two newspapers, the Providence Journal in the morning, even Bolton at night. Two papers came out, and East Providence had. Oh, you're a paper boy then? Okay. We don't have that. We now have East Providence Post, which does a great job, but it's weekly, and you have to go to a milk store or someplace to get the East Providence Reporter. It's a monthly. It does get mailed to everybody in the city.
Everything we're saying is being recorded right now.
And it's just a monthly.
Sure.
So what would be the problem in our city doing the robocall? And for anybody who feels that's
Right. To use another browser
you call
to do
and you
this.
say, take my name off, I don't want to know anything. And that's fine. I must have gotten 7 today about storms. Thunderstorm, rain, wind. It's not hard to do. You work in the school, Mrs. Run, I used to work in the school department. We sent out robocalls. We had the ability to send 60,000 within 5 seconds. That's the technology. It can easily be done. And maybe it shouldn't be called code red because that alerts people to the problem. But it certainly could just be a 30-second message saying that there will be a meeting for, etc. cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or there will be a zoning meeting. Simple thing to do. And we can get the word out. Facebook does a nice job, but Facebook is fake. I don't want to live by that. And I don't understand why we can't. I mentioned it a few times, just everyone can't kind of agree. There are others who are saying, well, it's cumbersome, I don't know. I don't see the problem with it. And I'm just addressing the communication now, not the intent of the project. But I think we could easily solve that problem for this, for any number of things, by just getting a robocall out. Everybody has a cell phone nowadays, so there's no excuse. Or it can go to your home phone. These messages can go to your email. It can go to all of these things. Simple problem solved in my mind. Thank you for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And very quickly, I just would like to address the 200-foot radius. That is, as most of us know, 200 feet isn't a problem. But that is, as we all know as well, as a general assembly law. Certified mail, 200 feet radius. In addition to that, I will say specifically that I went out and spoke beyond that 200 feet. I not only did it for this project, I do it for most projects in my ward, because I don't feel that it's sufficient enough to reach out to those people that you could be 200 feet right where you are for the project, and I'm not. So I don't agree with that as well. However, it's the law, and we follow by the law. I went out personally, surveyed, not so much surveyed, I should say. I had a copy of the rendering of those drawings, and I went door to door. Now, did I catch every single person in that neighborhood? Absolutely not. Not because I skipped any home, but because some people just went home or more important. Some people just didn't answer the door. But I did go in that surrounding area, and I spoke with most of the people in that surrounding area personally. And at that point in time, I reminded them that the developer was having a meeting, a public meeting on the development and the plans, in which they did, a week later or several days after the time that I went out there. So I just wanted to make it clear and on the record that although it is 200 feet, it is by General Assembly law. We did follow those protocols. I personally went not only 200 feet, but beyond that. I spoke to a lot of people in that particular area beyond the 200 feet. We had, or they had quite a few people that showed up for the event, for the meeting, which was essentially to notify the neighbors as to the actual plans of that event, the plans that for the build out of that project, the 8+ acres of land. And they discussed about the commercial space in the front and the residential aspect in the back portion of it. But I just wanted to again make it clear that although there is a 200-foot radius like General Assembly law, I went beyond that 200 feet and I spoke to quite a few people. I did the same thing, by the way, for the old Fran building when that was in discussion about having it built out for apartments. I went there in that surrounding area and I made sure all those people, most of those people were aware of that. So that is something that I take the initiative when we have a project that is very close to the residents, comes to a concern. I want to make sure that they are fully aware of the development in their area, whether they're for or against that development. But I want to make sure that they are aware of it so the word is out. And I asked them at that point in time as well, please let your neighbor know. So if I miss this person, I would sometimes on the occasion. In this case, I left notes on my card. I left a card and I left my note there. I left a note on here. So I just wanted to address that portion for frequency. Any other further? Just Councilman Martins?
I like that idea.
Excuse me, Morado.
I like that idea. My only question, I guess, would be a solicitor who would have, if a council person would like to put that out, those robocalls, who has the authority, I guess you could say, for something on there for a meeting, for example.
Yeah, so I guess the council would have to adopt a policy determining how to do it.
I would think, we could adopt a simple procedure. I know the administration has a press person. So if the administration has to announce something, I don't know, Matt wants to comment on that, or we could request through the press person or through the chief of staff or the mayor,
should not hold us back from doing anything.
So would that have to be in the term of a resolution or?
Yeah, we're gonna policy, there's the policy.
So, then can we make sure that it's on the next council meeting? Councilman?
Yeah, that's fine. And I don't want, we're kind of way off the agenda on this thing, so I don't want to get too far off, but I do have concerns about, I don't know how you do a robocall about zoning meetings. You might just say the zoning board is meeting tonight, but I don't know if you say that the zoning board is meeting on this property, There's a whole lot of things that needs to be considered when you're doing the robocall and giving notice. And do you do it for all boards? Do you do it for some boards? Planning board, just because you think the zoning board is important, well, someone might think that the clerical commission is important. So you have to adapt.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, we're way off topic. We're
way off topic. Can I just make, good evening, very quickly, Commissioner. I think with code red, there's certain regulations that they won't allow you to use in certain situations. So I'm not even sure they allow you to do something like that.
Right, there are other systems though, like the school department guys.
Yeah. So we can have this discussion offline.
We'll put it on the.
So we can order on next meeting. All right, very good. That was the only one person that we have for public comment, and thank you, Mrs. Bunt, for your words and speaking on behalf of your neighbors as well. So before we proceed in a manner that which we have on a docket, would anyone object, because we do have a presentation? Is it a presentation? Is it going to be a presentation? Can you approach the podium, please, so we can all hear you?
Good evening, Mr. President, honorable members of the East Providence.
Is that green light on, sir?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President, honorable members of the East Providence Council. Joe Shikachi for the applicant this evening. My co-counsel, Christine Gustian. We have a presentation this evening. We have experts. I think I'll defer to your clerk that the system is back online and we are live streaming. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I have been receiving also text messages that it was not, and I just got one that we are back online.
We received confirmation on that?
So I did receive, I reached out to Clerkface, which is who does our live streaming when you go onto the city's website. That's where people would be able to watch it. I sent an email off to Jay Rosenfeld over at Clerkface, and his response back at 6:46 was, sorry, I thought I got word out to everyone. The storm messed up our media server and we are unable to stream. Thought it would be back by 6 p.m., but not till later. We are restoring now, so we can upload the file and get it processed tonight. Apologize for the problem. I just tried it, and hold on just a second, because it was showing that it was preparing. Currently, this meeting is being recorded, but it's not live streaming. And I checked on the city website, and I'll double check again. It's kind of what I've been doing this whole time.
So very, very quickly, whether it's live streaming or not, from what I understand, the applicant would still like to proceed with the presentation. However, if it's not live streamed, then we will hold off on a vote.
Right.
So therefore, I'll give it time that is fully aware that they could.
Could I just get one more opportunity to check Council President? I just want to do that for him.
I have my council president holding off because people who may have tried to log on, they think it was a lost cause for the day.
So with that being said, would anyone mind at this point in time if we have asked the applicant for this to be moved up so we could get them in and get them out? And then in the meantime, you can determine whether or not this is being live streamed. So we have no objections of having moving up the this is ordinance for first passage of the hearing. Owners on Newport Avenue in Newport and New Road LLC. Jimmy Costa. Okay. The pages are not labeled. However, I will say that this is are skipping over council communications, we're skipping over new business, and we are proceeding to skip over resolutions and onto ordinances for first, in this particular case, first and final passage.
Council President, just so the record is clear for what I do, because it does appear that we're live streaming, and this is a matter that does require an open hearing and public comment, we are going to, based upon our communications with both the attorneys and yourself, we're going to proceed with the presentation, which is being recorded. The public will be able to review the recording at a later date. We'll then reconvene the public hearing at another date and allow people to either come in personally or by phone so that they can give their public comment before the council makes the final decision as to whether or not the grant is on. So, because these technical difficulties, I think that's the safest way of doing it. I believe that the applicants have no objection to that.
That is correct. We have no objection.
So with that being said, please proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
It does show that the video file is not working. It is picking up the audio recording, but I don't know if the public can hear that because
Okay,
it's nothing playing at all right now.
So let's proceed with the presentation.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, so I have some handouts for the council. I don't, if you'd like, I can.
Is that part of the?
I believe you should have a copy of it. This is an easy to read one.
Okay.
Yes, it's a small version, just easy to handle, but it's the same thing. And we also had a video presentation, but I believe it's a moot point at this point. So let me take the opportunity to say thank you. And I introduced my co-counsel, but the owner, Mr. Robert Chavio's here. I have several experts, the project engineer, Brandon Carr from Dupree, who will speak after me. And Mr. Chavio's here to answer any questions. I have a traffic expert. Be happy to do this. We're excited to be here in East Providence to come here and present what we think is a great opportunity for economic development, to take a piece of commercially zoned land that's been undeveloped for many, many years and has been in essence, an area where a lot of trash has been left behind. And we hope to develop this parcel and purchase 2 homes behind us, purchase a small sliver of land in East Providence, square it off to develop a apartment complex, residential homes in the back with a really nice buffer that we will enhance, and 2 commercial enterprises in front, a convenience store with a gas station, and a grocery market. We do not have the ability to disclose who they are. We don't have finalized contracts with those 2 developments, but we feel very confident that we will have them shortly. And that's why we're proceeding with the detailed plans for a grocery store. We can't announce the name. The same thing with the convenience store and the gas station. The apartments are, after a neighborhood meeting we held in February, we had a lot of input from the neighbors. We also had a planning board meeting. I believe you should have one of them will be 1 bedroom, 61 will be 2 bedrooms. These are market rate homes. We are not looking for any kind of a subsidy or concession. They'll be whatever the market bears. My client comes from Massachusetts. He's chosen to come to East Providence with the proper approvals and develop approximately a $40 million development. We think this is substantially good. We do not, we do not have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you that we know children, but we have educated history and studies by independent experts and industry experts to show there'll be very, very few, if any, children will be in the East Providence school system because of this development. Our target will be residents of Massachusetts who want to come and live in East Providence, who can't afford the homes in the rents and the real estate in Massachusetts. They take advantage of the train station in Attleboro, right down Newport Avenue, and the quality of life in East Providence, which is excellent. They very much enjoy We believe the benefits and all the attributes that we have seen that it is right now to mixed use. This would allow the apartment complex in the back. We had a planning, like I said, neighborhood meeting. We have pictures. I'll go through, Brandon will go through them, but we're gonna leave the 50-foot tree, high trees in the back. We're gonna supplement that. We're gonna have another meeting, some more conversation with the planning department and the neighbors, either arborvitae on the lower level to supplement underneath the trees, or a stockade fence, something nice. We're gonna give the neighbors and the city the choice to do that. That's all gonna be done at preliminary. When the planning board approved it, they approved it with stipulations. We've reviewed them, we've accepted them, and we agree to all of them. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Carr, let him start his presentation, and I'll come back with a few more details. And like I said, Mr. Chavo's here as well. This is Mr. Carr. I'd ask that he be accepted as a licensed professional engineer expert. He's from Decreed Engineering. And I believe he has appeared before this honorable council before and has been recognized as an expert in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carr?
Good evening, Brandon Carr with Decreed Engineering. As Attorney Shikarchi said, we're the civil engineer on the project. So I'm just going to walk you through quickly the packet that we passed around, is what the site is today, the zoning of it today, what we're proposing in the proposed zoning. So the first few pages in your packet are some aerial views of the site from different angles. You can see it's a pretty much square 8-acre site. It's majority wooded. You can see the section up along Newport Avenue has been cleared. There's in some of the pictures, some trucks parked there. Then it's pretty much wooded in the back. So Newport Avenue on the east, there's some commercial along Newport Avenue, corridor to the north and south, but then there's residential to the west, and there's some residential houses on both New Road and Moore Street. So you kind of see it's next page is the existing kind of aerial map. I'm sure you're all familiar with the area, but it's, within that Newport Ave commercial corridor. One of the proposed projects across the street is the old Narragansett Plaza. It's kind of diagonally across. It's actually the same zoning overlay that we're looking to apply to our site. Like Attorney Shikarchi said, it's a mixed use zone. So currently the project, you can see from the survey, this is that yellow colored plan that's on the board here. Probably about 90% of the site is currently zoned commercial 3, so it allows the retail uses, the commercial uses we're proposing in the front. The reason we're asking for the overlay district to be applied to this project is for the residential use in the back. So you can see the majority of the site today is zoned commercial, which would allow that dense commercial development across the entire lot. There are 3 lots in the back, small lots. There's 2 existing homes, and then there's a strip of land owned by the city that are zoned residential. So the next slide here is the proposed site plan. And you can see it's kind of, the site's divided up into 3 development pieces. So you've got, starting at the top right, what we're calling lot 1 is the 19,000 square foot retail grocer. That has a curb cut onto Newport Avenue and one onto Moore Street. And then there's the one on the south side of that piece of development to the center drive aisle that accesses Newport Avenue, that accesses the rear of the site. On the bottom right-hand corner, so that would be the southeast corner of the development, is the gas use that we're proposing. So that's on the corner of New Road and Newport Avenue. And again, that's directly onto Newport Avenue, onto New Road, and then onto that center road in the development. The center road in the development then leads back to the 3 residential buildings we're proposing in the rear of the site. It'd be 4 stories, a total of 152 units. Should point out that all the uses that we're proposing on site have adequate parking per the zoning bylaws, and all meet all resident dimensional and zoning requirements of the proposed CMU zone, which is what we're asking it to be changed to. So we won't be seeking any variances or anything from the CMU zone. It does work pretty well for the development. In the rear of the site, we're preserving a 30-foot buffer between Pine Grove and the rear parking area. That's the buffer Attorney Shikarsky was referring to. So that, along with, trees that we can preserve along New Road and then Moore Street on the north side, is where we're trying to preserve that buffer to the residential neighbors. You'll see by keeping some of those existing trees and then adding, lower vegetation. One thing we always see is when you go out there, it's, mature trees, their canopies up high. So adding to that lower understory screening to block the noise, to block any sight lines as much as possible, or add some fencing. We've really tried to keep the development centered on the Newport Avenue by keeping the commercial retail uses, the more intense uses accessible from Newport Avenue or accessible from New Road into Moore Street, closer to Newport Avenue. That's why we kept that commercial entrances and those commercial curb cuts closer to Newport Avenue. You'll notice that the residential component has the main kind of drive out to Newport Avenue, and then it also has connections to Moore Street and New Road. The idea on the New Road side, because there is a light at New Road in Newport Avenue, is to allow the residential use, if you're going north on Newport Ave, to come out New Road, more of a commercial corridor, and then utilize that light to go on Newport Avenue. The entrance, the curb cut onto Moore Street is a right only out of the development, so that would direct traffic towards Newport Avenue and not towards the residential use neighborhood behind the development. That was something that came out of that neighborhood meeting from early on. So just to be clear, I'm on page 9 now. So page 10 is the same site plan, but it's the architectural plan showing some of the landscaping, some, the areas where we can preserve those larger trees, adding the additional landscaping in the front. We would be going to DOT for all the curb cuts on Newport Avenue. We've had preliminary conversations with them, and to generally support the project, we'll be getting into more detailed engineering review with them in the coming months as they issue their permit. Same with Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management for the stormwater components. We've had preliminary conversations with East Providence DPW, sewer and water, to talk about sewer and water to the development. They both indicated capacity exists in that area. We've had preliminary meetings with staff and then also the planning board, which created a master plan approval. The next stages of this would be, if the zone change is granted, to then do the hard engineering, all the, thorough engineering, the traffic study has been completed, but, working with DEM, working with DOT, get their permits and then back to the city planning board for a preliminary plan. And then the last few pages, starting on page 11, are some architectural renderings of the site. So it kind of gives you the scale and the mass of the proposed project from different angles. So the first one is from kind of the New Road, Newport Avenue intersection, shows you the gas station, the retail use on the northeast corner, and then the residential on the back. And then the next page is kind of just rotate around the site, show you some different angles. Page 13 is from Moore Street, so that shows you the right out onto Moore Street, direct traffic towards Newport Avenue, as well as some of the and to preserve in the rear of the site. 14, again, same kind of view, but from the south from New Road, and then 15 is the view from Pine Grove. And then there's some kind of street views from Pine Grove, what could look like from Pine Grove with that vegetated screening, and then the parking, and then the building, and then kind of some views interior, starting on page 17, interior of the development. So that just gives you kind of scale of what, preliminarily what these buildings would look like, just 5 or 6 more views from different angles, but that's pretty much the extent of the development. Again, I'll turn it back over to Attorney Shikarsky, but if you have any questions, to take them now or.
Mr. Calvert, sure. I do have a question. Page 13, the area view of Moore Street. It appears that curb cut is leading traffic towards Newport Avenue.
Correct.
Is that the intent order to be pushed out into the commercial area of Newport Avenue?
Correct, and with, you know, residential use is a lot easier to control because the people live there and they're familiar with the area, so, you know, you would anticipate that as people move in and they become accustomed to the area, they would kind of gravitate toward the new road exit because it has the light instead of coming out on the Moore Street to Newport Avenue, but that curb cut, you know, we're proposing it to be signed and also curved towards Newport Avenue to prohibit a left turn into that neighborhood. There's really no reason that if you're leaving the site, you should take that. You should be directed either, if you're going, you know, you want to go west of the development, you're probably going to go New Road and then shoot out, or if you're going north or south, you're going to go to Newport Avenue. So trying to keep as much traffic out of that neighborhood as we can.
I just have a couple of, so okay, but you also have a few more questions with respect to water and sewer. What impact would that have on what we already have existing yet? More importantly, effects that will have in the surrounding area for those neighbors.
So we
have many units.
Yeah, we've done the preliminary flow calculations. We provided that to the city engineer and DPW and sewer and water. We've had discussions with them, and from their early analysis, they don't anticipate any capacity or pressure issues in the area. When we would go to preliminary plan is when they would do their full engineering review of the package. But we really, that's a high cost item, any offsite improvements for developers. So we really try to have those conversations early on, and we have, and indications are from staff that, you know, they're not anticipating any issues.
With respect to the height of the units, you said it's a 4-story apartment there. Does the tree line exceed that, the height of the building, or how does that fall in relation to those people on Pine Grove?
So, you know, and that's something that changed from the neighborhood meeting. We were originally proposing a 5-story building. We scaled it down to 4. The 4-story building, it's approximately.
I just want the public view.
Yeah, the 4-story building is approximately 52 feet to the peak of the roof. So you can see from some of the renderings, it's a peaked roof with some dormers. The peak of that roof is 52 feet. The existing trees on site, the bigger vegetation is in the 50-foot range. So it would be similar to the trees that are out there today.
And then I have one other question, if that's okay. The strip of parcel of land that's owned by the city. Can you tell me exactly where that is on one of these?
So if you go to sheet 8, which is the survey here, shaded in yellow. So if you're looking at the block, so if you're looking at the colored area, the dark yellow, the orange, that little triangle piece on the north side, so there's the 2 houses and then there's that little triangle, that's the strip of land right there.
I know exactly what it is. Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the council while we have them?
So that was one of my concerns, the height of the buildings. And try, so we can give an idea of what 52 feet is. We have a 4-story universal orthopedics building. And I know that's a commercial building, so I'm assuming the height will be different per story. Is it the same height as that building?
So we were the permitting engineers on Kettle Point as well, where the University of Orthopedics is. The apartment buildings just south of University of Orthopedics are 4-story residential. They're pretty much almost the same scale of buildings. These are a little bit, I believe, a little bit longer, but the height is the same scale as those apartment buildings out at Kettle Point, the ones closest to Veterans Memorial and Parkway.
That's a good indicator, because the University of Orthopedics has a 4-story building.
Correct.
It stands out, obviously.
Yeah, and it's also kind of on a higher elevation on a top of a wall, really kind of prominent feature down there. But the view would be similar if you're going up the Parkway and seeing those residential buildings. That's kind of the scale of the same buildings.
And I wasn't around for the initial meeting, so when did that take place?
So we had an initial meeting just at the staff level in January, February. We had a neighborhood meeting in February.
This one was first started over a year ago.
January.
It was in January of 2020. That's when we started conversations. There were maybe some conversations with staff in December, around Christmas time. And then we made a presentation. We spoke to the planning department, the mayor, the council president, it was his district, and they all suggested a neighborhood meeting. We did it on a Saturday morning, Saturday late morning, and with pizza at Uncle Tony's across the street. And incidentally, my client owns that. That's a development that he has done also in East Providence. That was part of the reasons why he had such a good experience. He wanted to come back here. And part of that meeting, what came out of that meeting was they didn't want to go higher than the trees. And that's why the originally was 175 units. We've gone down to 152. We got rid of the fifth floor. We're from a 5-story building to a floor. Our original plans showed one building of 5 stories. And we lowered it because the neighbors and the councilman requested it. And then the planning department requested 3 buildings, 3 apartment buildings, not one big one, 3, to scale it with space in between. So what I just want to highlight is a few points that Mr. Carr made. If we are successful getting this approval, this by no means approves the project. We still have the project stopped. There's a pause for several months. We then go to the Department of Environmental Management and do a tremendous amount of research and detailed plans regarding drainage, underground drainage. We then do full engineering with our traffic study. We have our traffic expert today. The city has asked, the planning department has asked for a peer review to us to hire another independent person to review our traffic. We also go to the Department of Transportation and submit our traffic to them as well. All of those things have to be reviewed and vetted. As Brendan said, we do a deep dive into very technical engineering for water and sewer. We have spent hundreds of thousands to date. We're going to continue to spend more after if we're successful in getting this approval. And then we would come back for another public hearing before the planning board with all our T's crossed and all our I's dotted. And then we would submit for our preliminary approval at that point before the town. So we're looking at probably from today, at least another, when I say today, obviously this meeting will be continued because we agreed to that. So when we get approval, if we get approval, I don't want to presume that it's going to happen, but if we get approval, it's about a 4-month engineering review, submit to state approvals. Only when we receive those approvals, only when the town has signed off on water and sewer, then we go back before the planning board for our preliminary approval at that point.
Correct. Along those lines, once all of the approvals are garnered, if you do get them, and if we were to approve, can you estimate a timetable from there to completion? And here's where I'm coming from. We have several developments in the city. Some started years before this council was even sitting, and we haven't seen a shovel in the ground. So in some places, so that gives rise to the public saying, "Well, we got another one. What are you guys going to do?" So
that's a very legitimate question, and I can tell you that if solicitor knows me, I do a lot of land use around the state, and when COVID hit, a lot of people froze their projects. My client is a local family-owned business from Massachusetts. He didn't freeze his project. He's going full-blown ahead. He's continued to spend legal fees, engineering fees, architect fees, traffic fees. He's committed. We have tenants ready to sign if we get approvals on the dotted line who want to come to East Providence, open up their business, hire people, pay taxes. We have a waiting list of people who want to live in these apartments because of East Providence's desirability. So we estimate from start to finish, less than a year. We'll have the 2 commercial entities up and running, and I don't know if the apartments are going to be built all 3 at once or 1 building at a time, but we will start right away. He has continued, and it's a testament to your fine city in COVID, because all around the state of Rhode Island, major developments are on pause. Everyone's afraid of, do they have a tenant? Are people going to move? Is retail going to happen? Restaurants are closing left and right. Convenience store, gas station, people still have to eat and buy gas. People still buy groceries. I don't want to say we are immune to COVID, but we are stronger than most people in this situation. So that's a legitimate question. We are ready, willing, and able to move forward. My client is committed to this, and he's committed financially to move forward on the project.
Appreciate that. And my last question, I don't know if it's a plan. So this project's approved, right? And you do find out that, you know, the drainage and culverts and everything there is gonna change the footprint of these buildings. Do you then have to come back to the council for approval?
More than likely, unless you put a specific representation, we do not, we would have to engineer it and figure it out with plans.
It's,
Yeah, that's what I said. Planning board, I'm sorry. I meant to say we would have to figure it out before the council, the planning board, thank you.
Just to clarify, the only thing that's before this council tonight, and again, I know it's not voting, is the zone change. So none of this project is a mixed-use zone. They're asking for a mixed-use zone, changing from a mixed-use to it's a split zone right now. Once that if that agreement to change the zone is granted, then the whole project goes through the planning, the development review process, whatnot. No variance is necessary because they engineered it such that it won't have to go before the zoning board. But the only thing, you don't get to approve the project, you get to approve the underlying zone. And then we have city regulations that govern the planning department, how they, you know, the placement of the buildings and all those other structures that have to be driven.
but if we're approving that 4-story building and then, you know, 6 months down the road, they decide we really want to put a 7-story building, that's my only question.
I think we
That's
can
the reason why I'm asking
I
that.
think we could put that limit on the zone change.
Exactly.
We could put that-
You can put restrictions saying no more than 4 stories or no substantial changes to the plans as presented. You have the ability to put those restrictions on. Just
If we listen to the citizens and that's one of their concerns, and that's the reasons why it was reduced from a 5-story to a 4-story. I think it's important to have that in writing so that they feel confident. You know, in our decision, whichever way we vote, that this is what the public, you know. That's
what they see is what they get, and I respect that, and we have no objection to that. Just some other housekeeping matters. I know this is being taped, but we have submitted everything you've seen tonight has been submitted to the city. It's online. I want to make sure that the planning department memo also gets posted online. I believe it has, but I want to make sure of that. And our traffic experts here, if you have any questions, we have a fiscal expert who's not here, Joe Lobato, but he was available by phone. He'll be available the next thing, but both of their reports are online, so they can be looked at and viewed by the public.
And Councilman Morado, just so you know, that's part of the discussion that I have on here on the council communications conditional land use discussion, to piggyback off of what you were saying. But I just, for a record, there was a discussion here on the council back in February about the neighborhood meeting. So we did talk about that neighborhood meeting here as a council back in February, just for the record to know that, you know, for those who didn't realize it at that point in time in February, I made an announcement, letting the public know that this was the date that the neighborhood was going to be, neighborhood meeting was going to be enacted, and in addition to that, the location of it as well. So that was something I failed to mention earlier, but I'd like to mention at this point in time. Any other further questions from the council at this time?
I have one.
Councilman Cahoon?
You made a statement with regard to the anticipated residences will go for market value at the time. How does that fit into the state's goal for 10% affordable housing within new developments?
I would defer to Mr. Lombardo. I don't know. I don't believe because at market rates, I don't know what the formula is. It changes every year. Rhode Island Housing sets what market rate is and what's affordable housing. These are going to be market rate housing, so that they're not going to be workforce housing. If the market, am I saying it right, Rob? If the market bears workforce, then they would be workforce. It's whatever the market is. We're not asking for any kind of, you know, not that there's anything wrong with it, because I'm the lawyer for the World Housing. These are not like Section 8 housing, or these are just whatever the market is when they go on the public, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, this is a public hearing, so anyone choosing to speak for or against or have anything to say about this project, please step forward to the podium. I'll make another announcement. This is Ron. If we could just clear the podium so we could have our 6 feet social distance right to the podium. I think I'm going to put these down if that's okay with everybody, so we can kind of see.
So, just as I stated earlier, I stand here neither supporting nor opposing the project, but I do appreciate the information that I received here tonight. And also, just for the record, I was not aware of the community meeting in February. And I think, again, this goes back to the fact that I don't live within 200 feet. But since we have Representative Shikachi here, who's in part of the General Assembly, Joe, okay, who is part of the General Assembly, maybe we can also ask you to possibly present a change to that 200-foot requirement on.
If you give me the mic, I can answer that, and I'd be more than happy to. If you want.
All right, well, let me just finish my one thing. And the only other thing that I'd like to recommend is going forward that there be more effort to communicate to the public regarding the next public hearing with the planning board. And also, when we do the traffic study, I know reading things and looking at things, there's been a big emphasis on the amount of traffic on Newport Avenue. I'm also concerned about traffic in residential area, mainly because looking at the records and looking at the plan, there is one entrance and exit onto New Road, which is very close to Coyle Avenue. And my concern is that a lot of people will be using Coyle Avenue to get onto Roger Williams and going the roundabout way. So if this passes and we proceed to the next step, and when in terms of transportation, I hope that transportation looks at everything, not just Newport Avenue, but also residential areas as well.
Mrs. Brown, I would just like to comment on that. During the neighborhood meeting, there was a gentleman who was very concerned about that, by the way. And one of the conversations that he and I had after that meeting was that I told him that I was specifically looking to that as well. More concerned about the residential portion of it, not so much Newport Avenue, but cars being redirected and trying to take shortcuts through residential areas. So that is something that I'll be exploring as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And again, I just want to remind everyone, this is a public hearing. So if anyone chooses to speak for, against, or just would like to come up and speak after Mr. Shikachi is done, please feel free to approach the podium. Shikachi.
With permission of Mr. President, the question was asked regarding notice. State law mandates that there be a minimum of 200 feet notice with any zoning petition. That's the minimum. City of Warwick in certain zoning areas have adopted a 400-foot. So you can go that. You do not need General Assembly approval. You have an excellent solicitor, both of them, Mr. Conley, Mr. Marcello, that they can craft an ordinance that says you can give more. The General Assembly sets a limit is the minimum amount. You could give more notice. And as the other gentleman, I can't see your name, I know he's a councilman, I'm sorry. There are many ways you can disseminate notice. You can, in addition to post this opt-in system, and people who can call up, give their name, phone number, and they get notice for everything in the city, or they give an email and they receive a notice. So there's a lot of ways to be creative about it. And I know it's something you're going to discuss for the future, but I think with both of your fine solicitors, you should be able to do that. And I'd like to say for the record, you have 3 excellent legislators on the House side, Representative Kazarian, Representative Amore, and Representative Sorodio, all work very hard for the citizens of the East Province. They do a very good job. And I'm sure if you wanted a specific piece of legislation I would defer to them, but I would gladly co-sponsor it with them if they wanted, but I'd let them run, as we call top billing on the legislation if you wanted something specific to East Providence. I believe you have the ability as a council to set a higher notice limit in the future going forward. FYI, you can research it. If some act of General Assembly is needed, I'd be happy to help your East Providence delegation with them taking the lead.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I want to say one last thing because I've been involved with this project since January, and I met this gentleman for the first time in this project. This has been a great dialogue with the citizens of East Providence. We've had a lot of communication. We've had the neighborhood meeting, we had the East Providence Planning Board, and the neighbors have been very respectful and very honest. We've had good dialogue, and they have spoken, we have listened, we've accommodated them, we've worked together. We're not going to get universal approval by the neighbors, but I really think that it's been a real good process, and we've come to a point where I think this project is best as it can be as far as neighborhood approval. I thank you. I think it has great benefits to East Providence. I know you're not voting tonight, so I will wait to when the night we vote to give you a closing argument. But I appreciate your time, your consideration, and your accommodation. I mean, it would have been just as easy as to cancel a meeting, so I appreciate you having at least half of it or a portion of it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, would like to mention this is a public hearing. Anyone choosing to speak for or against this podium, if not, public comment is now closed. What I would suggest and recommend at this point in time, continuation of this request that our next meeting is September 1st, 2020. If we can continue this meeting for September 1st, the next meeting, if that'll be okay to have this put on the next docket during that time, so the public has an opportunity to speak due to the issues that were audio issues and video issues that we're having at this point in time. We will defer comment to the next September 1st meeting. Is that okay, Councilman?
So then we would be looking to continue the public hearing, and are we also looking to table the vote on the ordinance?
That's correct. There will be no vote this evening on this. We will be tabling the vote for September 1st.
Oh, okay. So along those lines, Mr. President, I will move to continue the public hearing. Thank you. I will move to continue the public hearing and to table the ordinance and amendment of the City of East Providence 2010-2015 Comprehensive Plan Update, as well as the ordinance and amendment of Chapter 19 of the revised ordinances of the City of East Providence 1998, amended titled zoning, until that, what was the date again?
September 1st.
1 September meeting.
Let's second that. Is there no issues at the council at this point in time? I asked the clerk.
Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morado. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Bruno.
Aye. Councilwoman.
I'm here. Councilwoman Souza. Sorry, I lied, but I'm here. Councilwoman Souza. Here. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the applicant. We'll see you again on September 1st.
Thank you very much.
May we proceed now from where we left off, and it looks like at this point in time, we concluded public comment. We proceeded on to this presentation, and it appears now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the next item is appointments. Madam Clerk, want to take it from there?
Yes, Council President. Mayoral appointments with council approval. The first and only is appointment of Lucy Rose to the Juvenile Hearing Board. Mayor nomination subject to council approval. The term is August 4th, 2020 till February 17th, 2023.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, Council President Brito and honorable members of council, City Council. I'm speaking on behalf of Mayor De Silva to proudly nominate Lucy Rose to the Juvenile Hearing Board. She's a lifelong resident of the city of East Providence. She lives at 39 Apollo Lane in Rumford. She's part of a mentor group called Esperanza Job, New Hope, which mentors young kids. And she's also a certified life coach. She has 25 years of history in the human resources field, and she's a very qualified candidate for the Juvenile Hearing Board.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Pleasure of the council.
Mr. Gonzalez, are we at full strength now with the hearing board, do you know? With this appointment, we must be closed by now.
We're close, but I'm not quite sure. I can find out for you.
That would be nice because, again, I have someone that I would like to appoint. Yeah, I mentioned the name some time ago.
Okay, I'll get back to both.
I've done the same action that you have to do this application.
You have heard back. I'll check. I'll get back to them.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I would move approval of the appointment of Lucy Rose to the Juvenile Hearing Board.
Second that.
In the absence of Councilman Colmoon, anyone know if he's going to be returning? Okay, so currently we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Margaret, seconded by Councilwoman Souza for approval of Lucy Rose to the Juvenile Hearing Board. Madam Clerk, we have a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Morado?
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick?
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza? Aye. Council President Brito?
Aye, thank you. Moving right along to council communications.
First item on council communications is early voting and mail ballots for 2020 elections discussion. Council President Brito.
This is just an FYI more than anything else and not a discussion. I just wanted to put out to the public and let everyone be aware, not that they're not aware, that this is a presidential election year. With that being said, especially with the COVID, I would like to make sure that we get some good information. Anybody having information regarding absentee ballots, applications for absentee ballots, early voting, and things of that nature, to contact our canvassing authorities, or more importantly, we can go to vote, vote.ri.gov, and you can download some information there. But I would like to say that on August 18th, the deadline for the mail ballot application. August 18th is a deadline application for the mail ballot application. August 19th, vote for the primary, which is the day before Labor Day. You can start your early voting. So August 19th, you can start your early voting, which means that we will have election booths set up here in the canvassing office and then around the canvassing office for those who would like to get a jump start or head start and avoid those certain places that we all know sometimes can get very long. And with that being said, we know that there are certain polling places that will be closed. And I just want to make sure that people are aware, because going forward, as it is right now, Rumford Towers will be closed for voting. And that's not by our canvassing, that's by the administration or the management from Rumford Towers. So keep in mind, folks, that there are going to be certain polling places that will be closed come this election because of the pandemic. That has nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with our canvassing. And I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that going forward, you can vote early as well. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Next item is formulation of dog park committee discussion. Council President Brito.
Madam Clerk, is there a way that we can have come up with a committee for the dog park that we have? And these people do we have applications or a whole process?
Definitely get it on board as a new.
Okay, so with that being said, for the next meeting, I'll be putting on some type of ordinance, would that be, for dog park? Resolution for dog park committee, so they can start maintaining and doing some fundraisers for the dog park.
Did you want me to go ahead and set up the committee on board before before
I
that or
think we
afterwards?
need to, we need to pass a resolution first.
All right.
I just want to say that I'd like to start a, committee regarding the dog park that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item under council communications is newly paved roads in East Providence and no utility work for 5 years. Utility companies paving entire roads. Discussion. Council President Brito.
Again, I only mention this is because of the fact we might even have something on the books at this point in time that our new roads are being paved, and then all of a sudden a utility company comes in within the next year or two and digs it up again. I noticed this in my travel throughout my ward last week, that over on the tail end of Pleasant Street towards Route 152, they're tearing that road all up. As to why, I'm not exactly sure, but it's a brand new road. And what they're doing is they're tearing half of it up, so they're gonna pave half. And now again, here we are, we're in a similar situation as we were in before, where they dig trenches, they do half the road and the other half is not. So I would like to see, if we don't have anything on the books at this point in time, that we have a new road constructed. Anything within the 5 years after that road being constructed, any utility road, any utility work that needs to be done, that road be paid by the utility company curb to curb, not halfway, but curb to curb. So, going forward, again, it doesn't necessarily mean for those roads that have not been paved that we need to do that, but any new roads, that should be paved curb to curb, and not in a section, in a good section as well. It's like almost beat a section of wall. When you touch up one section, you got to do the whole wall and not just that one spot that you touched up.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I started looking into that situation, and there's a huge company in Bristol, I don't know if I should mention the name, but they do those huge municipal contracts, and huge sewer contracts and so on. And the conversation I had with one of the foremen, because he is a resident of East Providence, Ward 2, 3 actually, and his frustration. And he pointed out that Connecticut has legislation that solves that problem. And I believe some of it we have to do through the PUC, but he says that they have an excellent plan in place that eliminates the roads being dug up after the fact. So maybe something to look into. I try to get more from him, but just looking into it.
Thank you for bringing that up. So I guess, Mr. Solicitor, you can do your research and work your magic. Appreciate that. Thank you. And maybe it's not 5 years, maybe it's 3 years, I'm not exactly sure, but that's something for the council to have a discussion on sometime later on. Next, please.
The next item under council communications is zoning approvals by council regarding conditional land use discussion. Council President Brito.
Can I hold off on this one and piggyback off of what I think Councilman Morales is going to be discussing on Leonardo farm development? I'd like to hear my with that, if you don't mind, Councilman. Because I think it's going to relate to what you're about to say, or if you like, I could just go on while you could have piggyback off of. You want me to proceed? Sure. Okay. Essentially, part of the discussion we had earlier this evening, one of the things that I'm looking for is an event that a developer comes into the city and wants to develop a parcel of land. They come in front of the council and they propose A, B, and C. Council approves A, B, and C development. However, a year or 2 or 6 months later, that parcel of land is sold from one developer to another developer because there was a change of use. Second developer comes in and decides that they're going to build something entirely different. And that's why I want to touch upon what the councilman was talking about with Leonardo Farm Road, because I don't like what's happened with that particular project, because in that case, we had a developer come in, propose 18 homes, council liked it, council approved it. It appeared that that developer sold that parcel of land, or somehow they worked that out. I don't know how. Maybe, okay, you can have that, you can let us know about that. But there was an exchange, if I'm not mistaken. If not, however it may work, but either way, the point I'm trying to establish here is it went from 18 homes to 400 apartments, or over 400 apartments, 400 units. So, and Bill, please feel free to come up and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just didn't like the actual, what had happened with the change of use. It was approved by the council for 18 homes. In the event that this happens, and it's going to change from a development that was approved by the council, then that use would have to come back to the council for approval for a new development. And that's, to put it in a nutshell.
Sure.
Mr. Fazioli?
No, I agree with you, Council President. If something like that happened, I think the council should absolutely play a role, but what you're referring to is two separate projects. The 18-family, single-family home is one project, and it's on Reardon Avenue. It's different from the apartment project. So Leonardo Farm was never meant to be single-family home. That was a proposal by Driscoll, I believe, to build 360 apartments. That project, he lapsed. He never pulled his permits, even though we got approval. So a new developer's come in and is going to be building apartments on that Leonardo Farm. Rather than 360, I think he's proposing 460. So it's still apartments, but the Reardon Avenue project, which is Carbonado, that's single-family homes, and that's not changing at all.
And thank you for that clarification, but it just brought up an interesting fact that this still continues to remain that in an event that a parcel is sold or approved by one developer and it exchanges hands and another developer comes in, I would still like to see that goes in front of that council at that time for approval, as opposed to taking, and this can happen with Metacomet as well, but that I know of it.
Right,
well,
yeah. So yeah,
I won't get into
the
that,
two
but-
properties abut each other, so I can see why you would put on the map. Reardon Avenue is a much smaller project, and Leonardo Farm being close to Wampanoag Meadows is much bigger parcels, 50 acres.
Okay. Well,
That's who they're closing the apartment.
Thank you for that clarification, but I would still like to have that in front of. How long ago
Can I follow up? And I remember what you said.
1 second, question here.
Oh,
Can we, is the mics, because it sounds like a low on the low side.
How long ago was that commercial site approved for the 416 apartments?
The Leonardo Farm property was commercial for quite some time. In fact, Mr. Pimentel and I were talking about when that was rezoned. It was always a commercial site because it was a gravel pit for a long time. And at one time, it was actually a site for a proposed school. It obviously never worked out. But it's been zoned commercial for quite some time. And in the C1 district, which is what's it designated, it's always been allowed. Multifamily has always been allowed.
So multifamily has always been allowed?
Yes, in the C1 district, yes.
So that development does not have to go to council for approval, nothing, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the use is allowed under the zoning, the property owner can proceed, with permitted use.
So when you say that was approved for commercial, when you say it was approved for those apartments, how long ago was that approved?
I'd have to double check with staff, but I know that the Driscoll project that was probably left there. It was probably 15 years ago. Yeah.
So 15 years ago to today, when they approved those apartments, did they use a comprehensive plan at the time?
I would assume so, yeah.
So how does that plan still fit today, 15 years later?
Well,
What council discussion or anything like that?
as the development comes in, it's still, because it's a permitted use and it meets the density of the comprehensive plan, it's really something that they work out with the planning board. And if they need a variance, which I think the Leonardo Farm project, which is now being called Wampanoag Meadows, is looking for a zoning variance to go up to 4 stories. They'll have to seek a variance at that level.
So at that point, it will come before the council?
No, it still would be at the zoning and planning boards. Because again, it's a permitted use under law. If they're operating under the current zoning, it's just like anybody who buys a single-family lot, they want to build a single-family house. If it's consistent with the zoning, they can proceed. As long as they're not changing the use.
So Mr. Fagioli, considerations, and does this council have to take into consideration traffic studies, the impact on the school system, and so on? We don't have, the council has no say, neighbors have no say whatsoever on that project.
No, not
They could
true.
build a cell tower there. if they
No,
wanted.
no, not true. The planning board has public hearings. In fact, they had a 3-hour public hearing on, 4-hour public hearing, on the two proposals that were just being discussed tonight. So there were 4.5 hours actually. So there was ample public testimony and public comments and public questions. I wouldn't say the public doesn't have any input at all. The planning board listens to all of the testimony of the applicant, the questions and concerns of the neighbors. They take that all into consideration. I know Councilman Souza sits in as a liaison in those meetings as well. So the public has every right to participate. And as you can see from tonight, based on the input from public meetings, the applicant for the first project here, reformulated their proposal to make it less intense. They reduced the number of units. They lowered the,
Yeah, but that situation is different because they're looking for a zone change. You're looking for mixed use where it's currently a C1 on Newport Ave, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a different
So they
situation.
can do, yeah, so under the law, they can do strictly 100% commercial.
Correct.
But the fact that they want to add residential requires its own.
Yeah, and the four-story building, I get it.
Right. Yeah, but the situation with Leonardo Farms, that still requires at least 2 more public hearings and approvals by the planning board. And ultimately, also the zoning board has to give approval if they want to allow for a 4-story building.
Thank you for the clarification on my. We're going to be moving right along on council communications, letter E.
Letter E, short-term rental ordinance update, violation enforcement, and pandemic repercussions discussion. Council Vice President Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. President, early on in our sessions, several of us brought this issue to the forefront. I believe that we put East Providence in line with state laws regarding short-term rentals, and we now have the policy in place. Receiving at least a couple dozen complaints and or concerns from neighbors of a lot of these properties. I indicated that I would bring this up for discussion tonight to talk about the enforcement end of it. And I know Attorney Conley, in an attempt to be here tonight, and he is here, and also Chief Nevis was going to send someone. I don't know if he did or not. I can't see with the mask on, sir. I did this. Okay. Much better looking. There you are. Okay, so we do have, the basic question is, and I want to get back to our constituency on, is I believe our policy says for short-term rentals, you have to have the property owner occupied. And what some of these people are seeing, I think Councilman Morano, Councilman Cahoon, got some calls, we probably all have, in one particular home, and it doesn't matter where they are, that it's happening all around. The owner is not in the home, it's actually incarcerated, and someone is renting out to the short-term rentals, Airbnb or whatever it is, and the neighbors are being subjected to late night parties, a lot of out-of-state cars coming in and out, and with the pandemic, of course, I hate to keep saying pandemic like a lot of us may try to blame things on, but still we have to consider it. We are in the middle of a health crisis, and when you see cars coming in from all over the country to stay in a house and party and then leave, so what are the steps? And I think I know Attorney Conley and the police had some suggestions, and I think first of all, these neighbors just need to call and report it. So I'm asking tonight that we just try to get a better handle on the enforcement. I know we have the policy. I'm not trying to stop Airbnbs or to hurt anyone who's running a small business, but I'm looking to go after anyone who's abusing the policy. So with that, I don't know, Mr. President, if it's appropriate to ask, and I tried, and Ed Pimentel was going to address the issue as well.
Good evening, members of the council. Ed Pimentel, the zoning official for the city of East Providence, for the record. The properties in question you're speaking to, I won't get into the specific addresses either. So neighbors reached out to us as complaints as a zoning enforcement officer. I've sent violation notices to the one in question that you said was the real problem. In addition, there's been several notices out to the Airbnbs on Bluff, Airbnbs on Terrace. In some of the instances, they have sought legal counsel to make application to the zoning board of review to seek whatever necessary relief they need. Other ones have not responded. In those instances, I've already issued the second violation, and it's going to go on for prosecution. So I've now issued several violations to several, well, to 5 different property owners. Some own multiples.
So long-term, what is a long-term rental considered as opposed to short-term?
Yeah, so the way the regulations read is anything less than 28 days is short. Otherwise, you're entitled to rent your home for a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, like anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's how we distinguish in our ordinance right now. So we distinguish, and it's a matter of definition. It's just terminology. So we have a term called short-term rental, which then they also need a renewable annual license, which we're setting up and we'll charge a fee and so forth. And that way we can try to establish a registry as these things come on. That we're in the process of. Right now, the complaints come in, I immediately address and send out the violation notice. They haven't noticed us that they're in existence. And number 2, that's when I determine or document whether it's owner occupied or not owner occupied. So less than 28 days, owner occupied, short-term rental. You got to be on premises. You got to oversee the tenancy of the individuals that are renting the property. And our goal or objective is that there's control. Absentee-wise, less than 28 days. Our terminology for that is a bed and breakfast, and you've got to go to the zoning board. I think we figured out that the majority of these are not owner occupied, right? People are just renting by the week, the weekend, they live elsewhere. So as these things come in, immediately, I can't issue the license, but they're in violation of the law. So you got to cease, you got to get to the zoning board. As they're proceeding to hiring counsel, making application, I'm still proceeding with the violation process because I've also experienced delay tactics. And then if they want to go to prosecution, that's when we can have a trial and impose fines.
And Airbnbs in particular, or any kind of a homeowner rental program are allowed by state law, right? And I'm not saying I want to do this, but a question was asked, could East Providence ban them and say, we're not going to have them here?
Anything I answer in that regard would be anecdotally, so I'll allow counsel to.
So you could, I'm very confident that you could ban them in residential neighborhoods. In commercial neighborhoods, it's much more difficult because you would have to make a distinction between an Airbnb and a hotel. And it's just an argument that maybe I could think of a way of winning it, but right now it's not coming to me. But removing them from residential neighborhoods, especially single-family residential neighborhoods, seems like a much more straightforward argument. I'm not aware of any prohibition from banning them. I know that other communities have done things that ban them. Even when they are banned, enforcement can be challenging. This is one of those scenarios where it's largely complaint-driven enforcement because there isn't a meaningful way for a city representative to determine, unless they're going to constantly search the internet. There is some software and programs that you can purchase that do that for you, but they are prohibitively expensive. I mean, they're really designed for like the Malibus of the world. The other suggestion I can make is, so I actually run an Airbnb in Providence, so I'm not causing any problems around here. And I do live in the house. Airbnb, you can contact the company directly And I believe the company can shut down the address on behalf of the city because Airbnb doesn't take any responsibility for local zoning. You, as an owner, you sign on saying that I will take full responsibility for that. So it could be a breach. So I haven't had that experience, but I do know that it is something that when I registered my own address, this is something that I had to do. So we may be able to just directly contact the corporations and the corporations will just shut them down immediately.
So a complainant should call, I mean, obviously they can call any of us and we'll help direct the complaint, but otherwise they should call the zoning officer or the police department or?
I think either is fine. I'm going to speak to that.
Yeah, I would say that the cure is going to be multifaceted, right? But the zoning officer and the zoning ordinance is a long-term strategy of controlling land use. So I only have so much control for someone who's experiencing a lot of immediate pain and wants immediate gratification. You're not going to get that from zoning, right? If people are causing excessive noise or they're trespassing on another one's property, you've got to get the police involved. I know that the city of Newport takes a five-based strategy. It does the town of Narragansett, right? They cite you under excessive noise, or if there's too many individuals at the location, they have control over that. So it's a multifaceted thing. I think long-term, the cure is going to come through zoning because I don't think many people live in the premises that they utilize for Airbnb purposes. And I don't want to just pick on Airbnb, right? Just for short-term rental purposes. I think the long-term cure is zoning because as they, albeit reactionary, when it comes to our attention, eventually it's going to get to prosecution. And they're just going to impose fines. And the fines are going to amount a lot more than they're making profit-wise. So it behooves them to comply with the law. Or in certain instances, maybe they get to the zoning board, seek the special use permit. The zoning board feels that this particular neighborhood is more commercial in flavor, maybe it's more appropriate, that neighborhood is not. That's the zoning board's discretion. But I think long-term pure zoning, I think more immediate, is going to involve a lot of us working in conjunction with one another.
Thank you both very much. So good question. The way the ordinance stands right now, do you see any areas for improvement or that would help the city with, try to help these people to help this problem?
Yes, thank you, Councilman. We are actually looking at other ordinances as you speak, not because we think the ordinance is bad, but we think we could add more to it and improve upon it. Now, some of the ordinances out there are really overly restrictive because their community is so overrun with B&Bs. I don't think that's going to be the problem here, but I think it can be tweaked, and we're in the process of looking at other ones to tweak this one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman, thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is fireworks policy update discussion. Council Vice President Rogers.
Very briefly, I don't know if Attorney Marcello, if we have just a quick update. I'm not looking for a lot of specifics tonight. Again, I'd like to get back to constituents and at least 2 or 3 neighbors in particular called me weekly that it's continuing. They're still hearing fireworks at 11 o'clock at night. And I know we were working on a policy. So I don't want to wait until next July. And I'm not saying I know that you're doing some work on it. So is there any update?
So I did include, we continue to look at it. We believe we might have an amendment, a state law, basically. I don't know if you read the state law that was put in your packet, but it doesn't give, my opinion, doesn't give citizens has a lot of discretion because it says that you can use fireworks at any time, basically. We can enforce it by like noise and stuff like that, but we're trying to figure out if there's other ways around it. So we're going to be a little bit more creative. So we're working on it, but not quite there.
Understand.
We may be prohibited by state law, but it's my own concern, except through noise.
Seems like noise is the issue because I guess the law says you can't have anything except like a sparkler.
Correct.
Yet that's not what we're hearing in the neighborhoods. These are not sparklers. These are little bombs. So that's what we want to.
That's an enforcement issue because they're not supposed to have those at all. So that's an illegal act, and they could be, call the police, and they can be. But by the time they call police, they're gone. And again, it's very unique. Yeah, you're not the only community that has this problem.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is Leonardo Farm Development Discussion. Was that satisfied?
Yes, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next item is sidewalk conditions in Ward 3 discussion. Councilman Cahoon.
I think we're all dealing with this issue to an extent. Kind of in my neck of the woods, it's a little bit more pronounced because I've got so many state roads running right through it. Warren Avenue, Duckett Avenue. We know we're on the list for DOT to come in and redo those roads eventually when roadworks catches up to us. And that schedule continually gets kicked down the road. And then we know that the real fix is to the sidewalks is to get the roads done at the same time, get the new granite curbing, get concrete sidewalks in, et cetera, et cetera. In the meantime, while we wait for roadworks on Duckett Avenue, the sidewalks are a disaster. In many places from Bright Ridge Avenue up to the church, past the church, down to Unity Ave, they're basically ground down to gravel. They fill with water, they freeze. There are many individuals who walk to church, some on a daily basis, who have a very difficult time, especially when weather conditions are not good. So I talked with the mayor and Steve Kudu, and the two of them brought forth the idea of maybe being able to peel some of the work of a current road paving efforts that's going on, and maybe to address by way of asphalt, which is not ideal, but some of the more dangerous areas, if you will. And I wonder if the council has any appetite for, as we head into budget season and we start looking at this capital budget, perhaps we peel some money out of the capital program, look at the roads in our own wards that are in particular need and are on that state road plan eventually, and maybe apply some Band-Aids to them in the form of asphalt, just so people can get up and down them without falling down. So that's the idea. I mean, for me, that whole area from Warren Avenue up to the old trail is the worst. I recognize that's a big stretch of space. It's going to be really difficult to address some of the things like trees in the sidewalk. And, I mean, some of these things are decades-old problems. But that's not a reason for doing nothing, I think. And maybe if we address some of those high priority, maybe easier to hit areas first, spend some money on those, at least we can have people, getting back and forth to high traffic areas like Kent Heights School, St. Martin's Church, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the general plan. As I get some more specifics, I'm probably going to be coming to the council in coming meetings and saying, hey, can we take 40,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever it might be, out of capital specifically for sidewalks in these areas. And I'm certainly agreeable to hearing in those areas, your neighborhoods where, we need some more.
Councilman, I think I had this conversation with you early on that during this whole pandemic, I had the opportunity to walk, and I would walk all the way up to St. Martin's Church and back for the most part. And you get a whole new perspective when you walk versus driving. You get to really see the conditions, not only of the roads, but more importantly, as the councilman alluded to, the sidewalks. And as you proceed up to Tuckett Avenue, especially in that particular area there, the sidewalks are horrendous. It's like a drunken sailor walking. And there are dips in it that will literally yank your knee. And I mean this. And having that opportunity to walk, you see different as opposed to driving. And so I'm all on board with respect to taking some money out of the capital improvement, and identifying certain areas that are really deplorable conditions for sidewalks. I just don't have any issues or problems with that, just as long as we can identify some of the worst areas in our ward, and we could work to make those corrections.
Yeah, some of these sidewalks in Kent Heights still actually have the WPA emblem in the sidewalk, which tells you that they're nearly 100 years old. Yeah. So it's they need to be history.
Yeah, so I agree. I know we've had in previous issues where we've had litigation come before the council because of injuries on sidewalks. People have fallen, sustained some serious injuries because of the conditions. And I know When we came up with this plan, this 5-year plan for the streets and some sidewalks, we had identified some school zones, again, for the children that really needed it. And I think I spoke to Council President not too long ago, mentioning how we're coming up, I think, on the 3rd year, so we only have a couple more years left of this project that we had started for roads and sidewalks, and that we should look to continue, maybe not at the tune of $10 million like we did, but a substantial amount. Previous councils for decades have always allocated about $500,000 annually, which didn't seem to amount to much in the big picture because most of our streets weren't getting taken care of. So I think coming up with what a number would look like for how many, similar to like the project for the streets, what we could do annually, maybe for another 5-year plan in terms of maintaining sidewalks and continuing some of the major roads in the city that didn't get to that 5-year plan.
And I think that's a great point. I just don't want us to lose focus on the fact that I know we've deferred a lot of these sidewalks because we know eventually they're going to get done.
Right.
But that eventually just never seems to happen. Right. And we're still waiting. I mean, I think the original roadworks plan at Pawtucket Avenue started sometime in 2019. And I think sometime it's now starting sometime in 2023.
Right.
And with this going on, we don't anticipate that to shift.
Right.
We got to do something.
Yeah, a lot of the streets I've noticed have gotten, shifted around throughout the years. And I think some of that, I believe, Mr. Kudo had alluded to was because of utility work and breaking up roads, not necessarily Pawtucket Ave, but there was going to be major work for the water pipe eventually down in the Pawtucket Ave and Height area. So again, we don't want to run into doing sidewalks in that area or streets that are then going to be torn up and the paving be redone incorrectly because they're not paving the whole thing. Or maybe connecting their breaking up of the road and they're repaving it, sidewalk to curb to curb. But no, I think it's a good conversation and to us to plan for in the next budget coming. Thank you for mentioning it.
Thank you, Councilman. Next item, please.
Next item is 3-way stop sign on James Street discussion. Councilwoman Souza.
So it has a lot of residents in the Ward 2 over the course of the last 6 months in various parts of Ward 2, and I'm sure throughout the whole city, have identified safety zone areas within their neighborhoods and communities. And this is just another section of the city where residents and businesses have identified a safety concern. I actually had the manager of the bank, Bank of America, reach out that, and he's also a resident in the area, that there there's a stop sign right at each end of the street, but there's also a cross street that comes from behind, there's a one-way behind the bank, and that the speeding that goes through that section is really dangerous. There's a lot of children now in that area, school-age kids, and considering a stop sign that would then force people to slow down and not go quickly down that street, because it is used for a cross street, a cut through also being midway in the city. So this was more for the police department to maybe conduct some type of survey to see, is there a need, what is the speed range coming down that street versus the pedestrians walking. Have there been incidences of accidents or complaints that have been called in by residents to see what the need is for a 3-way stop sign. I'm also going to hold a community meeting for that neighborhood to get everybody's input and then bring it back to the council to see if it's worth having. To me, anything that has to do with safety is probably in the best interest of the residents and the city as a whole. So we'll be coming back later on for a discussion on that to the council.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Next item, please.
Next item is Abbott Street Swall and Culvert Replacement. Update on Runnins River 2020 maintenance discussion. Councilwoman Souza.
So last year's budget, the council had allocated $100,000 to the Runnins River maintenance, so to speak. We know that the river in the Straight Street, Abbott area overflows and floods annually, getting, worse and worse each year. On Abbott Street, there is a homeowner who has a substantial amount of property that is really wetland that overflows during the rain season. So we're coming up towards hurricane season where we know we're going to get substantial rainfall. And so this is the time of the year where State Street and all the neighborhood Abbott that starts to overflow because the river rises. And even though we put in that culvert, which I'm very glad that we were able to do, we know that there was still mediation that needed to be done along Runs River. And part of that was treating, killing, and removal of that invasive species, species that is in the pond, so dredging it. So I'm not sure where we are in terms of that project year to date, and that if the company that the city has been working with has been there this year or not. And then the second part to that, so I'm not sure if the mayor's office has any response to that. So I did send an email, and the mayor did respond, but not with full update on the maintenance of the Runs River and the money allocated by the council, but also Abbott Street and this gentleman's property. We had gone down there, the mayor, myself, and Steve Kudo, to look at the property and the way, so he's right pretty much up against the river bed. I mean, he's got some yards, but the owner of the previous house, just for some background, he used it himself, build in a swale. So every year he would maintenance his property and make his own swale so that the water would flood in through there because, and then it would go into this pond through a culvert. Now the culvert that's underneath the street is fairly small in diameter, and I'm sure clogged. So water isn't running from that low point to the pond area. And what we had, the city, he had given easements to the city, so everything, was made legal. He gave permission to the city to go there and dig out his property and make a nice swale with trees, much like now new developers have to do for water maintenance, tables to prevent any flooding. That was a year ago, and to my knowledge, nothing has been done or is planned to be done because he keeps reaching out and asking me, is the mayor's office sending anybody out to do any work? Because again, hurricane season's coming, and he'd like to not have 4 to 5 inches of water in his basement again this year because of that, not having the work having been done.
Also, would like to apologize to you. We had Steve Kudu scheduled to be here, but we didn't think you were going to be here. We got word that you were going to make the meeting. But I can find that out and have it addressed to you as soon as we can.
Okay, I can continue this to the next meeting to discuss it again. And I didn't anticipate making it to the meeting today, but I was adamant about getting a replacement to make it to the meeting because I know it's important. So thank you.
Yes, my apologies.
Yeah, no, I totally understand about it. But we don't have, we don't have any update on the funds right
We're expecting people to be able to find out.
All right, thank you. So I'll just refer that, Madam Clerk, to the next meeting for further discussion.
So that concludes council communication. And but before we proceed on to new business, I know we have police and fire, and are they on the docket for anything this evening? And we can
probably for fire.
Police cars too. And we have the police car resolution. So can we bump those up? Anyone mind? Yeah, we can find out. If we can, you guys bump those up, then we'll. Madam Clerk, can you just read that resolution or ordinance?
Of course.
Prior to.
Yes. The resolution for the cruisers?
Yes.
So that's a resolution. You'll find that under item C, resolutions. Resolution authorizing the mayor to purchase 4 cruisers for the police department, sponsored by Council Vice President Rodrick.
Clerk, Mr. President, I agree to help support this resolution. I think we'll recall that back in our capital funding process, we allocated $200,000 for the purchase of 4 police cruisers, which are ready now to be taken out of service. I think we all realize that they pretty much run 24 hours a day. This is part of the regular replacement of some of the fleet. It appears that the bids came in about $24,000 over, and I'll let you go into that. So the request tonight is that we still have the $200,000 that we appropriated, but that the additional $24,000 that's needed for these fully equipped cars would come from the Google account. And I don't know if there's anything else to add to that.
Councilman, it's actually, we have a new quote. It's only $16,258.
Oh, okay.
We took some things out since then, and it's kind of put some things off. So it's, the total is $216,258, 200,000 of which would be capital funds, and the $16,258 would be from federal asset forfeiture funds.
What was the total again?
$216,258.
Go ahead,
I was wondering, so did you have those hydraulic shocks removed from the cars at that time? Some of the cruisers and some of the...
Now some of the roads are paved. Yeah, we can do without them.
During the last budget season, when this came up as a capital improvement, divided for cruisers, and we did go down to 200,000. The question that was raised was that, why couldn't that 200,000 come from the Google money? And the answer that we got was that because the city has purchased vehicles in the past, we can't duplicate the same purchase.
Well, the reason why now is in the past we've used federal asset forfeiture funds to purchase the majority of our cruisers, and we can't supplant the budget. The city has to show that they are, occasionally purchasing cruisers, or the feds will, start asking some questions.
So with that 16, getting that 16,000 for the additional, over the 200, will that affect that agreement in any way?
I don't believe so. Not that I'm aware of. No.
Wouldn't that be part of not?
Well, I mean, the city is showing that they're spending $200,000 on cruisers. That was earmarked. I think it's reasonable with the overage that would be covered by federal asset forfeiture. I don't see an issue with that.
So next time around, if we're in need of additional cruisers, which we always will be, can that then be taken out of Google? Because we have shown that, we're not going to the same level.
Yeah, I mean, there's no set standard, I should say. We just have to be able to show that, if we are audited for whatever reason, it doesn't look good that the city hasn't purchased cars in years and years and years. So, yeah, there's nothing set in stone when it comes to that.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, if anyone's questioning why 4 cars cost 200,000, trust me, these cars, after they're all equipped, or equipment moved from vehicle to vehicle, they are expensive. And I know that firsthand from where I work. So,
and we do our best to take equipment out of the old cars, put it in the new cars. One thing we ran into this year is the 2024 Explorers are different shape, so we can't take, say, where we secure prisoners in the back from the old cars, say like a 2017 or 2018, and put it into this car. It doesn't fit. So we had to purchase new ones. But we do our best to recycle equipment from, that's usable into the new cruisers.
any further questions?
No further questions. I would make the motion to approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to purchase 4 cruisers for the police department with the adjusted total now of $216,258.
Second that.
216. 258.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Barata.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. And Council President Britta.
Aye. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Next docket, please.
Would you like to continue with the resolution?
Let me just find it.
Was there something for the fire?
Fire department, is there anything on here for the fire department?
He's probably here for the ordinance.
Are you? Oh, that was about 2 hours ago, chief.
Well, we have the ordinance vote.
Oh, yes, we still have to go.
Oh, we have the, okay, let's, Councilman, you wanna?
Yeah, I'm happy to go to it. I just want to, it's,
Oh, okay, we have to table the ordinance for second passage because of the streamline that we had, the issue that we had.
okay, we're gonna be into December before we fire this event here. Can we please get somebody from IT to make sure we're set up these meetings?
And Councilwoman, just so you understand, it's gonna pertain to your.
Yeah, no, I figured as
Okay.
much because I had gotten texts while working saying, we can't see the meeting. I said, I'm not there, I don't know.
Another reason might be too, because I'm getting messages, the storm has put the internet down in a lot of Rhode Island, including East Providence. When I was home before I came here, I couldn't get online in my house. And it said, and on the TV, it came up that the internet was down. So I think there are a lot of things at play here. So unfortunately,
Councilman, this is an emergency shelter, so we'll hope that we have these lines of communication.
It's an ongoing issue.
Right.
Beyond the storm, it's, you know, I don't know how many one of us would want to put something up or can't get it up. Let's just have people here so we can have a meeting.
yeah, storm's not the major problem.
And just to add to that also, I've been in touch with ClerkX the entire time, and those are the people that help us with the streaming to get us onto the city website. And it was just restored at 8 p.m. Everything was just restored at 8 p.m. So people would not be able to see this meeting until about 8 p.m. because of exactly that's what it was. It was the storm that was causing the issue.
45 minutes ago. Okay, moving right along to new business, please.
Just for clarity, I'm sorry, did we take an action to actually table all of those ordinances? Or? Oh. All right.
Would you like to go to resolutions or?
Oh, it's not necessary because we're going to table that for the next meeting. So we will proceed on to new business.
Okay.
Mayor communications.
All right. So the first item under new business is mayor communications, and that's the executive order 2020-37, extension of state of municipal emergency to September 2nd, 2020.
So I have a question, Mr. Furtado. In this order, is City Hall still considered closed to the public, or are we opening up City Hall in departments within City Hall with some social distancing and other safety precautions so that we can get the city up and running, maybe have IT here? Maybe that's one of the reasons IT isn't functioning, is because they're doing work share and not at home instead of being in the building.
We are planning on opening City Hall soon. We're still in Madam Clerk, here on the ground level, literally, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're just waiting on the glass to be put up finally. But once that's done, I believe we will be opening City Hall back up to the public. And we're doing the temperature checks right now as people come in. We just set it up so that there's it's stationed, so it's like an automated thing, so that the person can be sitting in the booth instead of having to actually interact with the person up close, so they can still be socially distant. So the measures, we have taken with precautions. It's just now it's a matter of kind of waiting on that. There was a shortage of glass because of COVID. There's a shortage of everything in town, but that's pretty much the last piece, and then we'll be open. I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating for the residents. It's frustrating for us too, because there's a lot of things that we can't do. But
So, Madam Clerk, can I ask, do we have an ETA on when the arrival and installation of these? I mean, you would know for your department, but would you know for all the departments also?
Wouldn't know for Councilman, I wouldn't know for all departments. I know that at least for my department, that is a pretty high traffic area. We have the steel frames that have gone up and the counters have gone up, and it seems like it's just the glass that's remaining at this point, but I'm not sure when the glass would be arriving. Nicole, you may know.
The last update I got was the 17th.
Of August, what's the done with the receipt of August?
Yeah, as the director said, there's been a shortage of glass and it's really what's behind it. Once we figure out what the date is, we gotta come up with, also, enhance our COVID plan, put spacers within City Hall, to keep the social distance. We're also planning to do a traffic, plan for people enter the building.
So has this not already been planned out? Have you guys not been working on this?
We have been working, but we're waiting for some of the materials to come in. So there is a loose plan, so to speak, but we can't actually do the plan until we get the articles. And one of the big focus has been the glass.
When is this, I apologize, there's a thick package. When is the date extended out to in this special order? Is it your
It's the next council meeting, September.
And without, Mark, I'm sorry, there's two changes that you sent tonight, and I apologize for not letting, it's hard to read off my phone.
It's okay, I don't have it in front of me either, but I know the changes. It's, one is just two, procedural ones. One is opening back up, municipal and probate court. Right now, I believe it's by appointment. Bring them in case by case.
We were doing that. Municipal court is, yeah, they are slowly coming in. Probate court is because we have very low volume for probate court right now. So
It's just opening it back up. And then the other one is what you exercised tonight, which is just formally stating that granting entertainment and entertainment licenses and special event permits. Otherwise, it's just continuing the same executive order.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of complaints about City Hall being closed.
Yeah. So permits, special permits are being allowed now, but that has been repealed.
Yes, in fact, the 5K that you granted tonight, in accordance with DBR, we've started, and chief, but we have a COVID-19 control plan that we do, so we put in an extra step now. So before any of these groups get to you, well, it's not anything where we could turn it away because you're the licensing authority, but they would come and they have to submit per state regs. They have to submit a plan of how they are going to, socially distance, how they're going to sanitize, this, that, and the other thing. They would submit a form. It goes through the rec department, and then once that's done, it goes in front of a panel that we've established, and that is made up of a representative from our fire department, a representative from the police department, and a representative from planning. And they just kind of go over the plan, make sure that everything is good. They give it the rubber stamp, and then it would go in front of you guys.
And I don't want to get off topic, but is there any way that these permits can be done prior to, in other words, we'll just get to it. Can the council approve it first before people set up, piggy land rides and press releases go out? Can we at least, the council, have a say and look at that license and have questions or concerns addressed before people go and set up on city property and put out press releases and that kind of stuff? Would that be possible at all? Because it does make us look bad when we have to turn away someone like that, and I feel bad for that gentleman, and nothing against him or his company. It's just, it doesn't make us look right either. You know what I'm saying? I think that communication should be a little bit better in that area.
Yeah, I think in regards to that particular incident, that was a miscommunication. But certainly, we also didn't have that COVID-19 plan established yet. So now, it's not that everything's always going to be perfect, but we certainly are trying to move in the right direction and having that process established. And like I said, the council is always that final licensing authority. You are the licensing board of the city. So the final authority rests with you. So,
Right, it just makes me feel bad to have to reverse, and it shouldn't get to that point. I mean, if it had been right off the bat, you wouldn't have wasted his time and resources in establishing that there, you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm asking, that's all I'm saying.
So we can get right back on course. This is for Executive Order 2020-037, extension of state municipalities emergency September 2nd. The mayor wants to accept this too.
I move approval.
Anyone like to second that?
Yeah, second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
I say aye, but I also would like that if the administration could please provide myself and the rest of the council with what the policy is for the plan to reopen, what your COVID plan, as everybody else who has to submit a COVID plan to the city to get anything done. I'd like to see what the city's plan is. I know you don't have the materials in place or they're on order and haven't arrived, but I'd still like to see what that looks like, that plan, so that we can let people know in the community, and that I can feel comfortable about it also, so that way I can see what we're lacking to get the city back up and running fully.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Aye.
Thank you, Councilman Souza. Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
The next item is correspondence to council requesting a meeting to discuss water issues.
Just correspondence, just accept and place on file. If once you want to discuss it, it's up to you, but it's just a formal correspondence. Motion to accept and place on file.
Motion to accept, place on file. You asking me to say that?
No,
I'll make
Councilman
that.
Rodrick, I think was asked for.
I'll make that motion.
That's-
Accept this as correspondence and please place it in the file. So,
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next item is reports of other city officials. The first is handicap parking signs, 7 South Carpenter Street. And Steve Coop, Chair. He doesn't stand here.
Would this be the required public comment also?
No.
This is still under, we're still under new business here, right?
Yes.
Is this part of mayor communication?
No, Mayor Communications is satisfied.
Okay.
So I just had a question, because the communication regarding this handicap request was unclear to me, and I'd actually like to ask Steve some questions. So if we could just defer this to the next council meeting so that you can communicate with him.
Yes,
I really appreciate that.
We'll make it for September 1st.
Next item, please.
Next item is presentation from Finance Director Malcolm Moore, current financial status, City of East Providence.
Mr. Moore, you may proceed. Okay.
Yes, good evening. This is through June 30th. And so what I did is I went back 3 years and took an average of the last 3 years to see where we should be through the end of June. And so all things being equal, we should be showing $833,000 surplus. We're currently showing on only a $76,000 surplus. So we're currently $756,000 behind schedule. And if I was going to project out, I would be saying that we would be about $750,000 in the red. Now, and you'll see I've got the revenues and the expenses. And then below that, since this is unique year as far as revenue expenses with all of the COVID issues we've had, I've listed some of those possible losses are probably more probable. The meals tax we get in monthly, and with the restaurants being open, limited, so we're down probably about $40,000 a month. And so, you're looking at another 4 months. So, rounded, I was at 150,000. Tax collection is down. That's not in here because it's not a unique thing with the COVID, but it is down about $750,000.
What relies tax collection?
Well, it could be because of the slow payment due to COVID, with people being laid off. There's also another factor that we normally have a tax sale in May, and that normally brings in a lot of old and delinquent accounts. And that has been deferred till September. So, and that normally brings in a few $100,000, so that can make up a good chunk of that. But there are potential savings on the expense side. We're currently running $400,000 better than projected, and that includes all of the COVID expenses that are in there. And hopefully some of that money will be reimbursed. So down below, we've got the two big items that would be a savings, which is the work share, which started in first or second week of July and goes through September 5th, I do believe. And I think that was projected to be $350,000 to $400,000 savings. I've not seen any numbers in July so far, so I can't comment on that, but I believe, I talked with the HR director, that as long as everybody stays out that said they would stay on this work share program, it should realize $350,000 to $400,000 in savings.
How long would that take us out to realize those savings? How long?
Till September 5th. So what happens is they're working 3 days and they're furloughed for 2, so they get unemployment for those 2 days. And for the first few weeks, they were getting that extra $600 from the federal government through, I think it's a CARES Act. Now that ended in July 31st, unless they've extended it. But is that echoing? Okay. So when we did this, we projected, I think it was about 11 weeks we would do this. And so if you made less than $65,000, you would break even, or if you made less, you even may make a little money out of this scenario. So the city would be saving 40% of the salary, and the employee would lose no income. Now, if they extend that, then the employees will come out ahead of the game on this.
So we can basically expect to have City Hall closed in other words until at least September 5th.
We're already into August. I know one of the issues was we were trying to get up the plexiglass windows, and once that's all set up, we talk about it. And so, when you factor those in, we're at about a deficit of 306,000. Now, that's on a per budget. Now, in reality, we have 1.6, we have that fund balance policy. So we put 1% away. So we have 100% of revenue, but we only budget 99% of expenses. So that in theory, every year we'll have a 1% surplus, rounded 1.5 million, which would then roll into the capital fund. So, and that's also used for reductions in revenue. So if you have a shortfall in the current year, then that would make that up. And then, so you wouldn't, in that year, let's say revenues are down 800,000. Well, instead of moving 1.5 into capital, you only move 700. And this was originally set up to make sure under the GASB guidelines, what they really want to see is a 10% fund balance. And in the charter, we have a 12%. So this is a way that it builds up your fund balance automatically, and then once we reach that cap, then it all rolls into capital. So I think in the footnote I've got number 2 is that, even though it's showing a deficit of 756, if the year ended, you'd be rolling
$852,000 in the capital, which is the 1% minus the loss.
So can we actually talk about that real quick? So going back to the restricted fund balance for the charter, right?
Yes.
Malcolm, can you tell us approximately what is that fund balance at right now?
It's at 12%, which is about 14.5 million around approximately.
So then the provisions for utilizing the fund balance per the charter include if the city forecasts or experiences a loss in total revenue and that loss is certified by the Director of Finance, or the city experience or anticipates an emergency situation which shall be deemed to exist when the city experiences any number of things which include health insurance costs increasing by greater than 10.5%. What did our health insurance costs go up this year?
11.1, I believe.
So I'm looking at a couple of different provisions that would be triggered under what you basically just presented to us. That would allow us to tap into the restricted fund balance and cover the shortage, right?
Councilman Mahoney, when you say that restricted fund balance, that's something like capital improvements?
No, that's the other quote unquote rainy day fund is.
Correct. So the other, since our last meeting, when I asked the questions of closing out capital improvement projects from last year's budget and previous councils, and the idea was to have a resolution passed to defund those projects that we haven't approved, which is just over $1 million, right? And doing a little research and consulting with Mr. Luba and Assistant Solicitor Dillon, what I did discover is that we can, in fact, utilize that money down the road to, for example, plug these holes here. There's going to be a little shortfall in revenues, right? However, I learned that I can't do it through a resolution, but we can do it during the budget season, during the budget process. So what I'm going to ask of you in this upcoming budget process is what we have outstanding from, which I already know the number, but I would like the official number from Finance Director being yourself. What's left, what hasn't been approved, and what's still outstanding from the previous council, right? Because there's some projects there that I believe haven't been done yet. So the idea is to close those out, and we're in perfect timing right now. I'm a conservative person. I know a lot of the council members here are also. Perfect timing that we didn't approve the last 1 point whatever million, because now we can actually utilize it for something right now that's, you know.
I have to check the charter on that. I think that if our solicitor would talk, assistant solicitor,
please,
because I thought that once it's in capital, it's got to stay.
What our research kind of identified is that there's essentially 3 types of categories that capital funds can fall in, but at the end of the day, when you get to a new budget cycle, anything that's unencumbered can be transferred out. So to transfer it out during the year is very complicated, if not impossible. But from budget cycle to budget cycle, anything that's unencumbered funds, you can transfer out.
So what would be the exact date to where, okay, we start moving forward here, and this is already in the past? Is it when that budget's presented to the council?
I would say so. You know, the charter doesn't specify a trigger date, but it's clear that at each budgetary turn, that's when you can shift funds around. That's not limited in the same way it is during the year. So when we get close to that final council budget date, I mean, unencumbered funds are unencumbered funds, and they're able to be transferred.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for this?
I just have one, Malcolm, and this is again a guess. About how much revenue does the city typically realize from tax sales on an annual basis? Understanding it vary greatly.
I would say it probably brings in total probably $500,000, and that's from the start, because let's say you send out 500 letters, and finally a tax sale, you may only sell 40 properties,
So you could say the tax sale is only 40 properties, but you sent out. So I think, when you start the tax sale process, any money you collect from those 500 letters is what I consider.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moon.
Thank you.
Moving right along.
The next item under reports of under city officials is city officials or city solicitors report claims committee report. City solicitor Mike Marcello.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, members of the council. As you know, the council met with the claims committee before this meeting in executive session and approved, took action on the following matters. The claim of Walter animal loss, the amount of $193.13 was approved. Property damage claim of Automotive Resources Inc. of $207.15 was approved unanimously. The claim of Stephanie Dodd in the amount of $1,528.28 was denied unanimously. Claim of Robert and Melanie Hill in the amount of $514 was approved unanimously. And the claim of Catherine McNamara was referred to an outside vendor for having hot mix for satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Move right along to resolutions. With that being said, the first resolution was already discussed, so we can move right on after that to the resolution for the comprehensive plan.
So I was asked to sponsor this resolution. In response to that request, I asked for the procurement materials associated with the RFP. There were 7 proposals received for the comprehensive plan, which I would characterize as very good competition. I had a number of memos from Mr. Moran, who told me basically how the selection process went, talked about their proposed awardee, and talked about, a couple that kind of rose to the top of having an interview, and they came into the interview process, et cetera, et cetera. So given that the proposed awardee is priced slightly higher or slightly higher than other awardees, I really wanted to review the individual proposals. I have confidence that upon that review, that the selected or the proposed awardee who we're being asked to approve tonight is the best choice. I thought that the proposal was very thoughtful. One of the things that I really liked about it is it had a very robust community communication plan, community involvement plan. I think they call it a PPP or community participation plan. But they've indicated Horsey Witten is the proposed awardee, has indicated some success in using that in the past in other Rhode Island communities that are similar in nature to the city of East Providence. So with that being said, I feel confident from procurement standpoint that we chose the right one. This is very, very important to me. I think you probably heard me beat the drum on this a number of times, and I've heard any one of you talk about it. It's one of the things I asked Mr. Fazioli about upon him coming in was, we've got a comprehensive plan that was basically put together when we were in financial hell in 2010. So it really behooves us to make sure that our current plan reflects our current priorities, agendas, goals, reflects the current scenario, the economic status of the city of East Providence. I have confidence, based on what I reviewed here, that the firm that's being proposed to come in will be able to get us there by taking the steps that they proposed. So that's that. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions about this tome that I read this weekend.
Any questions for the councilman? No questions for the councilman? Thank you, Councilman.
So that said, if there are no questions, I would like to move to approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Horsley Witten Group Incorporated for the completion of the city's comprehensive plan.
Councilman, one question, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the amount of the contract we had?
$80,000, which was exactly in line with what we had proposed or what we had approved by the budget.
Thank you. I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, at this point in time, seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morado,
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick,
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza, Council President Brennan.
Aye, thank you. So we are going to move right along quickly through this phase here. We're going to skip C, which pertain to the zoning for Juvenile Enterprise. We're going on to ordinances for second passage.
First passage.
Which one?
Right after the resolution, Council President, the ordinance is for first passage. We can do that if you'd like.
First passage, ordinance for first passage.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance for first passage, an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 8 of the revised ordinances of the City of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended entitled Licenses and Business Regulations, sponsored by Councilman Morado.
And Councilman Cahoon.
Councilman Cahoon.
So this is a solicitation ordinance change. Some of the wording in red would be the proposed changes. I can go through it at the council's pleasure. I can just leave it as is. First passage.
Can I just say, Councilman Morado, if I could just recount a little bit of the story that you told to me, because it's fairly terrifying. And I'll leave names and specifics out, but a member of, or a resident in Council Morado's ward contacted him about an interaction that he had with folks soliciting at his door. You know, he had asked them to leave and told them he wasn't interested in what they were selling. And they called the police and made some allegations that could have put him in very hot water. And the allegations were unfounded and untrue. But, you know, it really kind of shook me, right? Because, I mean, that could be any one of us. Somebody comes to the door, they don't like the fact that we're asking them to leave. They make up whatever, and then it's, you know, it's in the hands of the police to sort it out, or court. So that really, you know, got my attention, and you know, that's why I think we really need to take a hard look at this and make sure that we're regulating who comes to the door, when they come to the door, you know, what they're allowed to do when they get there, et cetera, to the extent that we can.
And if I can just add to that, so yes, there was an issue, and it could have that resident that lives around the corner from me could have been in some serious trouble, had to spend a lot of time trying to defend himself, had it not been for the Ring doorbell that, you know, basically backed his story up. What the solicitors were saying was inaccurate. What I do like about this ordinance change would be the accountability of the soliciting company to register with the city. And I like the added language of the no solicitation sign. If you put a no solicitation sign on your door, they are not to knock on the door. And if they do, and if they are reported, their license can get revoked to operate in the city. The other thing I do like, and I went back and forth with the assistant solicitor on this, we clarified and cleaned up the sunset, I'm sorry, it was a sunset. And I didn't want to leave anything out for interpretation. Well, the sun's still out, we got 5 minutes left, you know. So we just made it, there's no dispute of the time. And from January to March, which would be the winter months, 5 o'clock, they have to stop. So listen, from March to June, as we go into the spring months, 6 p.m., they have to stop. So listen, July to September, as we go into we're in the summer months, 7 p.m., and then back to fall, October to December, 6 p.m. So there is no disputing what time they should be knocking on doors. And the city, the clerk, our city clerk, they, in assistant clerks that have looked at this ordinance, and being that they're the ones that will be issuing the licenses, and it was good to go with that department, so I'm confident in, presenting it as it's right now, unless anyone has any comments or concerns.
I'd just like to add one thing you had mentioned, that January to March, 5 p.m.
Yes. Being that those are winter months and it's
Right. I think it gets dark even earlier, to be quite honest with you, between 4:15, 4:30 at the latest.
So we looked at that, and there's really no, to say 4 o'clock will be too early when we get into March. It's like half and half, right? Okay. Yeah, January 4:30 is already dark. January, February. When you start getting into March, April, the sunset tends to go a little bit longer. So yeah, it's just cutting on. It's right on the edge of that, but it's only a month or two, and it's still not as dark out. I thought that was a happy medium versus sunset. Sure, sunset could be interpreted many different ways. So,
Any questions for the councilman? Would you like to form that in a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for first passage of ordinance as amended, Chapter 8 of revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled licenses and business regulations.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rogers.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Moving right along.
Everything else is the second passage of public hearing ordinances.
We'll be tabled until September 1st. We tabled number 2. We didn't have the other ones individually. We had them taken action. Yeah, right. 3A through.
Yes.
3A.
3A through
3A to 3H will be tabled. September 1st.
I'd like to make a motion to table ordinances for second passage requiring public hearing from section 3A through H till September 1st meeting.
And this is due to the technical difficulties that we have for public comment, being able to share this with the public. We have a motion.
Roger Lee second that. I'd like the minutes to show that Roger Lee is the adverb that I've used.
Certainly.
It's one of the reasons I ran here. My second passage.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rogers.
Grudgingly, aye.
And there's two virtues. Councilwoman Souza.
Roger Lee, aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. That's been, I've been trying to sneeze for the last 45 minutes. Finally came out. Congratulations. That's why I walked over to the door a couple of times, by the way. Before we adjourn this evening, I just want to remind everyone that Thursday, August 6th, of the meeting on Metacom Country Club at Mountain Middle School. That's Thursday, August 6th, 6 p.m. Meeting will be held at Mountain Middle School.
That said, Mr. President, I'd like to move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Time to adjourn. Be safe, everyone.